One Piece Supreme Control, Chapter 541-560. Chapter 541 Sword. Shin. I will crush your head, and then crush all your body inch by inch. Kavira said with a cold smile, her voice extremely cold. Yang Qing just smiled sarcastically. He would let the former know how naive he was. Look at your current appearance. Have you become a Super Saiyan? It looks exactly the same as King Vegeta, but I don't know how much your strength has increased now. Kevela said contemptuously, but no matter how much you grow, you won't be my opponent for the third stage of transformation. My stupid brother Frieza, the combat power of 3 transformations can reach 150 million, and at this time, I am 3 times stronger than him, and I have a combat power of 450 million. Yang Qing was startled when she heard Kevela's voice. Does the opponent's combat power already have a combat power of 450 million? In other words, his combat power has exceeded 450 million. This is really a terrifying number. Just hearing it, even he can't help but be startled in his heart. What? Scared? Seeing Yang Qing's expression, Kevela thought that the other party was already afraid, but he showed a disdainful smile. However, it's useless for you to be afraid, I will still kill you. Your strength is very strong, and it has threatened our cosmic emperor family. I will never allow you to survive. Suddenly, Kavira's expression became indifferent. Yang Qing was stunned for a moment. After realizing that the other party would be wrong, he shook his head helplessly. It seems that it is necessary to let you know which of the two of us is stronger. In the next moment, the expressions of the two of them became extremely cold, and their bodies were surrounded by killing intent. In the next battle, these two people with full combat power will definitely not have the slightest reservation. Yang Qing is on another planet and is still in the enemy's territory. Naturally, he will not have the slightest scruples, and can use his strength to the limit. And Kevela himself is a ruthless emperor, and naturally he will not pay attention to the people on this planet. Suddenly, a thunderbolt flashed in the air, and the figures of the two who had separated the void and the ground suddenly disappeared. Just 1/1000th of a second later, there was a collision in the air. Boom! Immediately afterwards, there was a continuous sound of thunder. The two began to have accumulated conflicts and collisions in the sky. Every collision made the sky and atmosphere of this planet tremble and tremble. On the ground below, a gust of wind began to roll up, thousands of waves were set off in the sea, the tide rose, and the surface began to crack. Suddenly, a dazzling light shone, and the stream of light suddenly appeared, slamming into the ground ruthlessly. Boom! The violent explosion sounded, and the louder wind sounded with shock waves in all directions. In just an instant, a city-sized land was razed to the ground and turned into a piece of scorched earth. Immediately following, countless dense light bullets fell from the sky, like meteorites, falling on the ground and in the sea. At this moment, the huge planet experienced the most tragic disaster since his birth. Countless creatures were crushed into flesh and blood by the aftermath of the battle between the two, countless vegetation was directly destroyed, the ground began to split, and magma began to rush out from the surface. Even so, the collision in the sky still did not stop. They are too powerful, so powerful that the stars are like vulnerable ants in front of them, powerless and fragile. After the two fought continuously for half an hour, Kevela's eyes became sharp. I didn't expect you to be so powerful after your transformation. Hee, I've probably figured out your third stage transformation. If you have any other tricks, just use it. Yang Qing smiled indifferently. Don't be ashamed. Flames spewed from Kevela's eyes, he shouted angrily, and rushed over again. His figure has already surpassed the speed of light many times, and ordinary people can't see his moving figure with the naked eye. Bang! Kavira's body suddenly stopped on the way forward, and there was a flash of incredulousness in his eyes. Looking at Yang Qing who had come to his side at some point, he tightly grasped his waving wrist. What? Break your arm first, what do you think? The smile on the corner of Yang Qing's mouth was very cold. Then, with a sudden force, with a click, Kavira's wrist was directly crushed into pieces by him. Ah! Kavira let out a pained cry, and a circular plain qigong slash appeared in the other hand, and then quickly waved. Like a sharp blade, this qigong slash directly slashed towards Yang Qing. With a slight change in expression, Yang Qing retreated, but the qigong slash suddenly accelerated and turned into a stream of light. Will it be tracked? Yang Qing narrowed his eyes and remembered Frieza's stunt in the original book. Then, his right hand touched a hard handle behind him. It was he who created the Johei sword. After the sword light flashed, the slashing qigong slash was cut in half by him, and then fell into the high mountain behind him. Soaring. Afterwards, Yang Qing's figure flashed, and he raised his sword and slashed towards Kevela in front of him. His sword skills are absolutely precise and dexterous, forming routines, one ring after another, and his speed is extremely fast. In an instant, Kevela's hands collided with Yang Qing's blade more than a dozen times, and a little blood fell from the sky, causing him to. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. His eyes changed, very apprehensive. Suddenly, a sneer appeared at the corner of Yang Qing's mouth, and the speed of the long sword in his hand suddenly increased. Kevela's expression changed drastically. With his years of combat experience and the fastest speed he could play at the moment, he quickly leaned back. At the next moment, Yang Qing's body and the long sword seemed to merge into one, and the two crossed each other by the slightest difference. Woo! Kevela quickly raised his upper body and body, with a sigh of relief in his eyes. But at this moment, his back suddenly became cold. Blood spilled out and quickly fell to the ground. Kavira turned quickly and saw the half of her tail that had fallen. Although this sword did not cut off his neck, it cut off his tail. Wild monkey. This time, Kevela was completely angry. In his body, the raging power that burned from the depths of the cells swept towards his whole body again, and once again, terrifying energy fluctuations lingered throughout his body. You totally pissed me off. Wild monkey. Yang Qing's eyes suddenly changed and became extremely solemn. The guy in front of him is finally going to make his last change. Chapter 542 Limb Regeneration. Shin. Boom. The bursting breath burst out from Kevela's body again, and it was mighty, and the extremely fierce wind swept away in all directions of the entire planet under his feet with him as the center. The ground under his feet even began to crack and shatter into pieces. Large tracts of land and stones were shaken by the terrifying energy fluctuations to the sky. Gradually, the hot lava under the crust began to reveal. In the sky, the atmosphere shattered into a hole under the impact of this surging energy. Gloomy dark clouds shrouded the sky, and endless thunder and lightning were intertwined, entangled in the clouds, spinning and roaring. Half of the sky was turned into a blood-red flush, like the rosy clouds on the horizon, releasing beautiful colors. Above the ground, rivers flow backwards, seas churn, and land shatters. Everything on the planet is as fragile as scum in the face of Kevela's terrifying aura. Spectacular, imposing, beautiful scene. This moment sweeps the scene. Centered on Kevela, who stood proudly in the center of the sky, an endless storm began to churn. His breath was as violent as a burning star. No, it was even hotter than a star. His whole body, at this moment, was surrounded by hot and cold flames, centered on himself, releasing an unparalleled violent aura. Majesty, a strong majesty suppresses the entire huge planet. At this moment, this huge planet is as fragile as paper, and it can't even stand for a moment in front of Kevela's aura. The surface of the entire planet seems to have been swept again. No creatures exist anymore, and large tracts of land have collapsed, shattered, and collapsed. Moreover, because of the terrifying thunder and lightning swept through, countless charred blacks spread over the entire surface of the planet, constantly smashing the planet. A scene like the end of the world has descended on this planet. As for Yang Qing, who was under the impact of the closest gust of wind, her eyes became brighter and brighter, and the excitement in her eyes became more and more frantic. Strong, it's so strong. Is this his most terrifying power? 800 million or 1 billion? No, it's far beyond the level of 1 billion combat power. It's so scary. At this moment, Yang Qing's whole body trembled, and he was shaking with excitement. The strength of his body seems to be burning, and his breath is rapidly increasing and expanding at a terrifying level. In just a short moment, half of the sky has been filled, showing golden arrogance, competing with Kevela in front of him, comparable to that. This terrifying momentum made Kevela's expression stagnate in an instant, and his eyes became even more fierce. Damn Saiyan monkey, I didn't expect such a terrifying power to exist in your body. I must kill you. The killing intent on Kevela made the gust of wind in the sky even colder and whistled past. As the clouds rolled, the thunder continued to fall, causing the magma on the ground to tumble. It's not over yet, Kevela. There was a smile in Yang Qing's eyes. With his strength at this time, he was naturally not a master of the other party, but he still had tricks that he didn't use. Aha! With a roar, Yang Qing's strength suddenly swelled again, and it tripled. Exploding. Kevela's pupils contracted suddenly, then widened. The next moment, in his shocked and disbelieving eyes, Yang Qing actually disappeared in front of his eyes. Huh! A stream of light just flashed before him, and then a fist quickly enlarged in Kevela's eyes. Die! Yang Qing roared, and slammed his right fist down. The long sword in his hand was already sheathed. In this neat and tidy world, he was more used to using his fists to simply and rudely deal with all enemies. Bang! The thunder roared, and Kavira was directly knocked into the air by a fist. But immediately after that, Kevela had already reacted without using a thousandth of a second. At this time, Kevela was also extremely terrifying. With another buzz, Kevela had already rushed in front of Yang Qing, and then, in the latter's equally wide eyes, he slammed a punch. Bang! Yang Qing tilted his head, blood spurted out of his nose, and the pain quickly entered his mind, causing his blood to boil again. Then, with an angry roar, Yang Qing swept out. Ah! Kevela groaned in pain and bent down. This feeling swept across his stomach, an unusual pain. As soon as he gritted his teeth, Kevela's feet also kicked up, and when Yang Qing couldn't dodge, he kicked his chin ruthlessly, causing him to rise directly into the air and quickly rise. In just an instant, it has already flew hundreds of meters. Kavira resisted the pain, roared loudly, and rushed up against the wind, straight up to the top of Yang Qing's head, raised his right leg, and then slashed down fiercely. Bang! The thunderous voice came out again, but Kavira was shocked, and his eyeballs were about to come out. Yang Qing's swift punch came first, and hit him in the thigh and leg ruthlessly. In just an instant, Kevela felt that his big legs and legs lost his intuition. Damn boy! With a roar, Kewe stretched, shot, and yanked. Yang Qing's right arm was directly grabbed by him, and then he exerted force. Click! A crisp sound came out. Yang Qing's right. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The arm was directly pulled down by Kevela, and a large amount of blood was thrown out. Ah! Yang Qing roared. The pain made him roar, raised his left hand and pinched Kevela's left leg. Then, the breath in the body expanded, and a golden qigong wave was formed in an instant. Boom! And Kevira, when she saw the golden light shining, her eyes widened in horror. A huge explosion sounded in an instant. Yang Qing's eyes were angry and indifferent, and the battle strength was in the flames, not retreating at all. The fire soared into the sky, and after 5 seconds, Kavira's painful voice came out, revealing his remaining body. In the heat of the explosion and flames, Kavira lost all of his right leg and the calf of his left. The two of them were dripping with sweat on their foreheads at the moment, standing in the void, staring at each other with anger and murderous intent in their eyes. The pain of the severed limb made both of them want to kill each other immediately. Ha! In the end, Yang Qing let out a cry, and where his right arm was broken, a sudden protrusion suddenly gushed out. The next moment, a brand new arm appeared in its original position. Chapter 543 Planet Explosion. Shin. Kavira's eyeballs almost popped out, and he saw with his own eyes that the arm of the person in front of him that had been removed by him appeared again, making his worldview almost collapse. How is it possible? Saiyan, how can there be regeneration skills? Such a skill, even he, the strongest emperor in the universe, Kavira, is impossible to possess. The mighty Kavira, even though he lost 1.5 of his legs, his breath was still high, and his cold and stern aura made the surrounding void tremble. But his mood was at this moment unable to calm down for a long time, even though his combat effectiveness did not decline. But at this time, the opponent's limbs are sound, but he lacks the means of attack. There is no doubt that he is already at a disadvantage. Saiyan, why can't we regenerate limbs? A sarcastic smile appeared on Yangqing's face. This regeneration skill, he really didn't lose a little bit of money for what he wanted from God. Next, you will die. With a loud shout, Yangqing's figure quickly disappeared, and then, in Kavira's sharply contracted eyes, a fist quickly enlarged. As soon as he twisted, he was about to fight back. But at this time, due to the lack of limbs, there was a problem with the balance of the body, and the body could not help but shake slightly. It was a shock, delaying his action, and Yangqing's fist slammed into his face. It was as if 10,000 hammers had been slapped directly on his face, and Kavira's expression instantly became dazed. And after this stunt, Yangqing laughed and couldn't be more polite. The left fist was swung out, and with a bang, Kavira floated back, and the right fist was swung out, and with a bang, it floated back again. Bang 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 bang. A series of thunder-like roars came out, and Yangqing's left and right fists quickly greeted Kavira's face. The strongest man in the universe, who was hit directly, spewed out blood, and Venus shot up in front of him. In just a few short breaths, Yangqing didn't know how many fists slammed into his face. Anger, brewing and fermenting in Kavira's heart. In the end, during the interval between Yangqing's fists, the furious emperor of the universe finally broke out. Kill you, I'm going to kill you. A fist clenched fiercely, and then swung out fiercely. Bang! The huge force directly impacted from Yangqing's back, spread rapidly, turned into a gust of wind, and even the atmosphere was broken through a big hole. A mouthful of blood spurted out of Yangqing's mouth, and the attacking action stopped immediately. After this confrontation, the two finally confronted each other again. At this time, Kavira's combat effectiveness has shrunk a lot. Even now, he was beaten by Yangqing's random punches, and even now, Jinxing is still running around, his whole face is bruised and swollen, even his father can't help coming to him. But even so, the breath on his body was still very violent. As for Yangqing's attack, he did indeed use his full strength. That chaotic hammer, I don't know how many times he threw his fists, and he felt refreshed. However, the consumption of energy is also terrifying. Hoo-hoo. Both of them were breathing air, their lungs were burning as if they were burning, and their muscles became tighter. The battle is approaching the final moment, and both of them are using this brief time to quickly recover themselves. In the current situation, Yangqing undoubtedly has the upper hand. His explosiveness gave him the power to match or even surpass Kavira. However, the consumption of this body is also extremely terrifying. In addition to the recovery of the arm, at this time, he has spent a lot of physical strength and feels tired. This is a dangerous signal. It means that the time for him to maintain such combat power is running out, and soon, I am afraid that his combat power will begin to decline rapidly. Before this, the opponent must be killed. And Kavira, who had the same idea as Yangqing, also blinked, thinking about how to solve the opponent in front of him. This guy is too powerful. I must destroy him. But his strength is comparable to mine. It's too hard to kill him in battle. Also, I'm missing 2 legs at the moment. If I continue to fight like this, I will be dragged to death by him, and I don't know how many times I will be hit. If it is a powerful Qigong wave, I am afraid that I will be defeated in an instant and then die at his hands. Kavira is sinister, cautious, and ruthless, even better than Frieza. His eyes flickered and he swept around. Suddenly, he saw the lava rushing under his feet and the ground covered with white mist, and a smile appeared in his eyes. As far as I know, Saiyans can't seem to breathe in the universe. This sudden emergence of inspiration made Kevila's eyes burst into a smile immediately. Sorry, mighty Saiyan. I am really reluctant to kill you. After all, it's good to have an opponent like you in the universe. Kevira smiled with a hint of hypocritical sympathy, but who made you stand in my way? Yang Qing raised his eyebrows when he heard the words, and a mocking expression appeared on his face. Don't be ashamed. With a cold air, Yang Qing didn't care about Kevila's alarmist words. There was a roar in Kevila's eyes, and he was extremely angry with the confidence of the Saiyan in front of him. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. If that's the case, I'll kill you right away. With a roar, a crimson qigong wave formed in Kevila's right hand immediately, and then a stream of light was drawn, rushing towards the ground below. At the same time, Kevila looked towards the opposite side, and Yang Qing's panic and nervous expression clearly reflected in his eyes. Ha ha ha, destroy it, Saiyan, follow this planet and destroy it together. It's too generous to use a planet as your graveyard. His figure quickly rose up, and while flying high, he saw that Saiyan seemed to be frightened, standing in the void, without even the slightest movement. The Saiyan is the Saiyan, the inferior race in the universe. I see how you deal with such a scene. Die, you poor race. Kevila sneered in his heart, and his figure turned into a streamer and quickly disappeared. Below, after the entire planet was hit by the qigong wave that blasted into the star core, Wang's voice trembled immediately, and then, hot flames shot up into the sky. The magnetic field is chaotic and stormy. Yang Qing stood in the void, with a mocking smile on his face, looking at Kevila who disappeared. His right index finger and middle finger were brought together, and then pressed between his eyebrows. Chapter 544 The Realm King. Shin. Boom. The soaring flames, magma, and scorched earth were unable to impact the universe in all directions. The huge star was destroyed in an instant at this moment, bursting into a group of extremely brilliant fireworks. And Yang Qing's figure gradually disappeared in the flames that flew almost at the speed of light. The beauty of the explosion of the planet is extremely bright, and it blooms in an instant. It is colorful, and dazzling. And this beauty is like a flash in the pan, and it dissipates in an instant. The coldness in the vacuum made the fireworks quickly return to darkness. Gradually, a large number of cosmic debris appeared in the universe, floating quietly. The high-temperature burning flame was quickly extinguished, cooled, and everything returned to darkness. A complete and huge star standing quietly is such a complete destruction. Kavira stood in the vacuum, looking at the shattering stars with a smug smile in his eyes. Ha ha ha, Saiyan monkey, just monkey. How are you going to survive in an explosion like this? I'm afraid he's already dead. Slowly fluttering, standing on the suspended meteorite, his face was full of smiles, his eyes swept around, but he didn't see a single figure. Sure enough, with this beautiful fireworks, it disappeared into the void. However, just as he finished saying these words, his expression suddenly changed, and his whole body tightened. He felt behind him, and suddenly there was a breath. This breath is so familiar, so that his pupils immediately surged with endless anger. To disappoint you, I am not dead. And, you are too careless. The faint words came into his ears, the figure was too close to him, and if the other party launched an attack, he would not be able to escape at all. Damn it! With a loud roar, Kavira turned around suddenly with disbelief and anger in his eyes. Then, in his eyes, a bright sword light shone. The sword light was so dazzling that he couldn't open his eyes when it shook, but in just a moment, it slashed across his neck, and then cut across his arms, legs, and body in less than a breath. At this moment, Kevila couldn't even count how many swords he had chopped at the moment he waved his hand. It only felt for a moment, the sight in front of him was split, and then split again. The next moment, he saw that his body had been cut into countless tiny particles. At the same time, his huge aura began to drop rapidly. 365 yuan. 365 yuan for such small pieces. Yang Qing looked at the flesh and blood in front of him lightly, watching them float quietly in the universe. I know that as long as you are not completely destroyed, you can be resurrected again, but I will not give you a chance. Kevela, while you were destroying the planet and calculating me, you didn't know that you had already fallen into my calculation. While you are happy with my death, your attention is also the most distracted. In such a state, you have no ability to escape my attack. Suffer to death. The dazzling golden light flickered, and a huge amount of energy quickly gathered in Yang Qing's hands. In just an instant, a qigong wave was formed. In Kevela's broken line of sight, this qigong wave with high temperature and incredible changes appeared, and he immediately panicked. He could feel that under such qigong waves, he would be destroyed. Really destroyed, not even a little bit of scum will remain. Boom! The dazzling qigong wave broke out instantly. Yang Qing shouted loudly, and the thick qigong wave in his palms suddenly blasted out. 365 pieces of minced meat were evaporated and vaporized in this high temperature in an instant. After that, the golden Chenghong was still not a little bit slow, and was thrown farther away. In an instant, the wreckage of the universe that had just been shattered was swept away. After passing through one after another, the Kavira stump left on it also instantly disappeared in this huge aura bombardment. After a full 10 seconds, an extremely dazzling light bloomed in the universe. Then it emits colorful rays of light, forming a circle of light, which quickly spreads out. After 3 breaths, everything returned to calm. Yang Qing stood in the void. After a blow, the golden color on his head disappeared immediately, and the Super Saiyan mode returned to normal. Black hair appeared, and dense sweat appeared on his forehead. Tired, after a big battle, he felt very tired, but it was worth it. Destroying Kevela, this powerful enemy, Yang Qing was very happy. Moreover, in a battle with Kevela, his combat power has grown again, and it has grown to 5 million. This was incredible and made Yang Qing extremely excited. It's worth it, it's worth it. With a smile on Yang Qing's face, he followed, sitting cross-legged on the broken meteorite nearby. He needs to rest for a while because, after this, there are more important things to do. Glancing towards the north, Yang Qing's eyes flashed slightly. Then, he closed his eyes and began to rest. In that extreme north position, he sensed a line of sight peeping at him. This is a mysterious feeling, very faint, but Yang Qing is very familiar. Because this is very similar to the way he uses teleportation to sense others. And for this person. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. He also had a guess. Above the Milky Way in the extreme north, above the end of Wangquan Snake Island, hangs a planet whose gravity far exceeds that of ordinary planets. This planet is very small, and there are very few people living on it, only 2 or 3. Among them, a man with blue skin, long thin horns sticking out from his head, and wearing sunglasses. At this moment, fine beads of sweat are oozing from his forehead, and he is gathering to feel the breath of that faraway place. It's unbelievable, terrifying Saiyan. Is this a Super Saiyan? It's terrifying to kill the tyrannical cosmic Emperor Kevela. Also, he seems to have spotted me just now. What an astonishing tactile perception. Terrible man. Is he the great elder of the Saiyan family? Frieza wiped out the entire Saiyan nation, yet there is such a terrifying opponent. Suddenly, the man was shocked, and inconceivable burst into his pupils. Chapter 545 Guidance. Shin. This person's heart was full of deep shock. From the beginning of the battle, the huge energy fluctuations that erupted were already noticed by him. However, there was nothing he could do. Because the two sides of the battle, compared with him, although he is superior in status, but in terms of strength, he is too far behind. Blue. He muttered the name of the Saiyan out of his mouth, and the man was stunned for a while. Suddenly, his face tightened, and his heart trembled. No, gone. Just now, he noticed that the terrifying young man opened his eyes from the rest, then stood up and pressed the index finger and middle finger of his right hand between his eyebrows. At the next moment, the figure disappeared from the universe. Huh. A slight wind sounded, and in his wide eyes, the figure he was sensing appeared in front of his eyes so abruptly. You. He was shocked and stepped back a few steps, his eyes full of horror. How did you get here? The figure that appeared, glanced at the environment here, and then felt the gravity on the planet, with a clear look in his eyes. After that, he just turned his eyes to him. Because the war has just ended, the cold and domineering surging fighting spirit has not dissipated, and at a glance, people can't stop trembling all over, which is very terrifying. Lord Realm King, I'm sorry to disturb you. Suddenly, the cold-faced man opened his mouth, his tone was gentle, and a smile changed on his face. As soon as the voice came out, the dignified and majestic pressure dissipated, and the Realm King breathed a sigh of relief. I sensed that someone was watching me secretly, so I chased after your breath. Looking at the puzzled eyes of the King of the Northern Realm, Yang Qing said with a smile. You chased after my breath. The King of the Northern Realm was shocked, his pupils shrank again, and his heart was secretly shocked. This guy has already reached such a level. He is not only powerful, but also mentally powerful. So horrible. Being able to clearly perceive his breath means that the person in front of him has cultivated to a terrifying realm. I didn't expect it to be Lord Realm King. I'm really flattered. Yang Qing said with a smile. Although the King of the Northern Realm is not very powerful, he is knowledgeable and has a lot of research on martial arts. If he can instruct him, maybe his power will improve again. I'm also very surprised that you were able to kill Kevala. At this moment, the Northern Realm King, shocked by Yang Qing's power, actually lost his usual amusing and became very serious. He's very strong, and I almost tried my best to find the right opportunity to kill him. If it wasn't for his overconfidence, it would be very difficult for me to kill him. Yang Qing told the truth, and his eyes were full of seriousness. The King of the Northern Realm nodded, and then said, What are you doing here with me? If you have nothing to do, you can leave. Yang Qing was stunned, then smiled and said, I want to ask Lord Realm King to guide me in my practice. Cultivation. The King of the Northern Realm was stunned, then shook his head like a rattle. No, you are already so powerful, I can't guide you, you should leave quickly. Please, Lord Realm King. Yang Qing ignored the rejection of the Realm King, and directly bent over. Then he curved his mouth again and said softly, If you can accept me as a disciple, you must be in front of other Realm Kings. It's going to be a lot of fun. When the King of the Northern Realm heard Yang Qing say this, he immediately started to associate. Thinking of the other 3 Realm Kings' men being beaten up and down by Yang Qing, they were completely defeated, and then there was a light on their face, and they began to laugh involuntarily. Hey. The King of the Northern Realm covered his mouth and kept laughing. After a full 5 seconds, he inadvertently glanced at Yang Qing, realized the current situation, and then pretended to cough. Well, it's okay to want me to guide you, unless you can tell a joke to make me laugh. Joke. Yang Qing was stunned for a moment, then became confident. If he remembered correctly, this Lord Realm King actually had a very low immunity to jokes, and any nonsense words could make the latter laugh non-stop. Lord Realm King, you are so handsome. Lord Realm King, you are the most powerful. After trying to say a few words, Yang Qing looked at the King of the Northern Realm tentatively. I saw that the latter began to become serious after listening to these 2 sentences, and his face was very serious. He was stunned, feeling bad. It seems that what he said is not even a joke at all. Just when he was screaming badly in his heart, the King of the Northern Realm slightly curved the corner of his mouth, then covered his mouth and began to laugh secretly. Ha, I'm the most handsome. Ha, he said that I am the strongest, ha. It's so funny. The King of the Northern Realm kept laughing, making Yang Qing secretly relieved, but a black line appeared on his forehead. It has to be said that the joke aesthetic of the King of the Northern Realm is really different. Lord Realm King, have I passed the border? When the King of the Northern Realm was about to laugh, Yang Qing coughed softly, and then reminded the King of the Northern Realm. Cough, that, starting today, you can follow me to practice. The King of the Northern Realm became reserved, holding the. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. With an expression on his face, he looked at Yang Qing. Then, Qing, you should unleash your strongest strength first, and let me see, so that I can decide how to guide you according to your weakness. Now that the King of the Northern Realm has decided to teach Yang Qing, he will not hesitate, so he speaks directly. Okay, Yang Qing nodded. He still believes in the King of the Northern Realm. After all, as the god of the Northern Galaxy, his realm level should be very high. He should be able to guide himself to continue to become stronger, but for a while now, he really can't find an opponent. Fists clenched around his waist, Yang Qing's face became serious. Then, his breath began to increase rapidly at a terrifying speed. In the end, he shouted loudly, his hair and eyebrows turned golden, and his pupils turned pale green. At this time, he has transformed into a Super Saiyan. The gust of wind blew, and the terrifying aura swept across the entire Zhuang Star, causing the Northern Realm King's clothes to shake, and his mouth was twitching. Such a huge energy fluctuation. Lord Realm King, this is not my strongest. Next, I will explode, please advise. Yang Qing reminded, then his face became serious, and he shouted again. Exploding. Suddenly, the face of the King of the Northern Realm began to change greatly. Chapter 546 World King Fist. Shin. Huge energy fluctuations appeared in the feelings of the Northern Realm King. At the same time, the gust of wind began to charge in all directions with Yang Qing as the center. The King of the Northern Realm and his pet Babris, Gurgly, and the three were instantly swept up by this gust of wind and flew towards the back. Then, it slammed into the wall of the house behind and stuck tightly. Stop, stop, stop. The King of the Northern Realm shouted loudly. Yang Qing's breath fluctuated, causing the golden clouds above the King of the Northern Realm to form a vortex and swirl frantically. This huge energy fluctuation is really shocking. The wind was howling, and even thunder and lightning began to appear out of thin air. The little King of the Northern Realm is now encountering a huge wave that has rarely been seen in thousands of years. What's wrong, Lord Realm King? Hearing the cry of the King of the Northern Realm, Yang Qing was stunned, and then asked. All right, all right. The wind calmed down, and Yang Qing's breath began to drop rapidly. The King of the Northern Realm quietly breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat from his forehead. It's too powerful, I have nothing to teach him at all, what can I do? The King of the Northern Realm quietly got into trouble, but just by feeling Yang Qing's breath, he knew clearly that the strength of the person in front of him had reached a point where it was difficult for him to assess, and I am afraid that he had already surpassed all the gods he had come into contact with. It is really hard to imagine how this guy cultivated. Lord Realm King, is there anything else I need to improve? Yang Qing asked tentatively. Cough cough. The King of the Northern Realm coughed, his face flushed red, but finally he had to say, your cultivation has indeed reached the pinnacle in all aspects, and I can no longer guide you in terms of martial arts. Well, I'll teach you my Kaiwang fist, maybe I can help you a little bit. Just after saying this, Jia Wang felt embarrassed again. Jia Wang fist is indeed very useful, but with the increase of strength, it is difficult to improve synchronously, which means that he has a limit. With Yang Qing's strength, it would be difficult to use a single-digit multiple of Jia Wang fist. Jia Wang Quan. Yang Qing became excited. The power of the boxing mastered by Sun Wukong in this original work is real and visible. It is many times higher than the explosive gas, and there are also some in the system's exchange, but the exchange price of up to 500,000 has stopped him. Although his combat power has reached a very high level at this moment, he has not yet reached the point where he can waste it casually. Well, I hope it can help you. The other thing is, your power is already very strong now, but in terms of martial arts, I observe you are still a bit rough. Perhaps you can visit all over the place and play against the strong people from all over the world to form your own unique style. Lord Zhuang said, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Yang Qing also nodded earnestly. He knew that sometimes, in terms of martial arts, other people's seemingly careless words were enough to have a huge impact on him. Next, after spending a month, Yang Qing and Lord Zhuang learned Zhuang boxing. As for the vitality bomb, the Realm King did not mention it, and it seems that he is not ready to teach him. He was not unhappy either, and being able to learn the World King boxing was already very satisfying to him. A month later, on Zhuang, Yang Qing maintained the original form, and then put his hands on his waist and slammed 3 times the king's fist. With a hum, a crimson aura appeared around his body, the chi in the body immediately boiled, and the aura suddenly swelled 3 times. 5 times. A hotter red flame appeared, and Yang Qing's whole body was emitting a brilliant light. 10 times. Boom. The crazy airflow was surging, and the wind began to sweep out. The expression on Yang Qing's face was a little crazy and distorted. I haven't reached the limit yet, and I can still improve. The king of the Northern Realm was blocking his head at the moment, looking at the man in front of him in shock. How is that possible? How could he possibly increase his strength 10 times more? At his level, it's hard to mention horror. This guy's talent is terrifying. The king of the Northern Realm was shocked to the extreme. The next moment, when Yang Qing shouted out those words, the king of the Northern Realm was shocked and stepped back 3 steps in a row, his face full of confusion. Jia Wang fist, 15 times. Roar. The high-temperature scorching flames rushed into the sky like waves, and the violent breath made the entire Northern Realm King Star uneasy. Yang Qing's original combat power of 5 million, plus a 15-fold increase, then it is a terrifying 75 million. That is to say, under normal conditions, with the help of Zhuang Fist, he can reach a terrifying combat power of 75 million. What a terrifying type of boxing! Yang Qing started to cheer up and excited from the bottom of his heart. Ha 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 ha, too strong. His great god laughed, and his voice traveled far and far. The Northern Realm King's eyes trembled, not knowing what to say. What kind of monster have I made? With trembling in his heart, he said this sentence, the King of the Northern Realm. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. I didn't know whether to be happy or worried. If the other party's character is good, then it's easy to say, but if the other party is evil, I'm afraid it will bring huge disaster to the entire universe. Moreover, according to the observation of the Northern Realm King during this period of time, this person's personality is definitely not that kind. In his soul, there seems to be a trace of conquest, subjugation, domineering, stubborn and deep, and it is difficult to change. That is, this person is an ambitious person. Such people are very dangerous. Gradually, the breath calmed down, Yang Qing turned his head, and bowed respectfully to the King of the Realm. Thank you, Lord Realm King, for your teaching, thank you very much. No, it's fine, what should be taught, I have finished teaching, you can leave. The King of the Northern Realm waved his hand. He was still secretly worried that if he created a demon, it would be a big deal. After all, the guy in front of him was originally the evil Saiyan family. I still want to practice with Lord Zhuang for a while. Yang Qing scratched his head awkwardly. I don't have much to teach you. The King of the Northern Realm began to push Yang Qing, with both hands trying to push Yang Qing out, but unfortunately, the latter did not move at all. Well, I'll stay for another 3 months. Just 3 months. Chapter 547 Divinity. Shin. In the end, the King of the Northern Realm was conquered by Yang Qing's rogue appearance. No matter how he pushes, the other party will not leave. And hearing that it's only 3 months, for the Realm King, it's actually nothing. Just 3 months, 3 months, you will leave here. The King of the Northern Realm glared at Yang Qing. Yes, hee hee. Yang Qing just smiled. He stayed here for 3 months, and actually had his own purpose. Star Vegeta was destroyed, and there are probably still several years before the plot begins. As for the powerful enemies of Sun Wukong when he grows up, there is still a long way to go. Moreover, he has a goal in this world, that is, to become a god. There is still a big gap between mortals and gods. Mortals are busy all their lives, but only for 100 years, but gods have a long life. Unless they are killed by others, they can even live forever. Although relying on cultivation, Yang Qing can also increase his lifespan, but there is no doubt that it takes a long time to cultivate. Maybe I can get some inspiration from the Northern Realm King. Yang Qing's eyes flickered. He stayed here for 3 months to observe the divinity of the Northern Realm King, that is, the dimensional gap between him and him. Compare this with your own understanding, and then improve. For the next 3 months, Yang Qing's life was very leisurely. The king of the Northern Realm entertained himself all day, driving his car around the entire planet, and he was very happy. Yang Qing, on the other hand, hovered cross-legged in the air, quietly observing the king of the Northern Realm. No, this seems to be the energy after the sublimation of spiritual power. No, it's not right, it seems that the soul has been elevated, and a trace of divinity was born in the soul. God, what kind of creatures are they? And how did they judge their rank? With the observation, doubts were born in Yang Qing's mind, more and more, making him wonder. It seems that it is not easy to study the method of becoming a god. However, the soul of the Realm King has given him a lot of inspiration, and he already has some ideas. In addition, when he is free, Yang Qing will get the permission of the king to go to hell and fight against Kevla to improve his combat effectiveness. Because Kevra was very evil, he was thrown into hell directly after his death. And this villain is restless in hell, making trouble all day long. Soon, a month passed. Regarding the observation of the Realm King, Yang Qing finally fell into a bottleneck. There are deeper layers that I haven't observed. Frowning his brows, Yang Qing had no choice. His eyes were just ordinary mortal bodies, and it was difficult for him to observe the soul at a deep level. Look in the system, maybe there is a way. Yang Qing's eyes lit up, and then he opened the system interface and began to look for it. Yin-yang eyes can see ghosts. Dead eyes. Writing round eyes. Blind eyes. Looking for them one by one, Yang Qing swept past them quickly, and in the end, his eyes lit up. The Eye of Reincarnation, the eyes of the legendary Six-Path Immortal, can see through the Six-Path Reincarnation and possess various incredible powers. The Eye of Reincarnation, the Eye of God in Hokage, may be a bit worse than Kagaya's, but these eyes seem to be able to see through the soul. Samsara is the samsara of life and death, and it possesses incredible power. Although these powers may have been difficult to help Yang Qing's combat power, he only needs to rely on the particularity of his abilities. Of course, at a higher level, there are more powerful reincarnation writers, but considering the cost-effectiveness, Yang Qing only exchanged the reincarnation eye. The price of Samsara Eye is 1,000 combat power, while the price of Samsara Shaker is 100,000. In between, there are too many differences. Exchange, Samsara Eye. In just a moment, Yang Qing's eyes blinked, feeling a little sore. Immediately afterwards, his pitch-black pupils turned white, and lines appeared in them, showing a circle-like distribution. At the same time, the blood of Samsara Eye itself also introduced its function into his mind. A glint appeared in his eyes. Then, Yang Qing looked at the Realm King and glared fiercely. In just an instant, the real body of the Realm King was immediately seen through by him. He clearly saw that the body of the Northern Realm King was enveloped by a layer of golden aura. This golden color is not dense, but it is not thin. In addition, there is blue energy flowing continuously. Gold is divine, blue is energy like qi. Yang Qing came to understand that divinity does not only exist in the soul, but also in the body, where it becomes one with the body. Only in this way can the soul, body, and divinity be one in one, and can last forever in the world. The pupil power in his eyes continued to open, and Yangqing saw through his body and directly penetrated into the soul of the Realm King. With just one glance, Yangqing was shaken violently, and a look of horror appeared in his eyes. At the same time, the Realm King also turned around and looked at Yangqing with a hint of doubt on his face. "What are you doing looking at me, Qing?" the King of the Northern Realm asked in confusion. At that moment just now, he actually felt that his soul had been seen through. It was as if he had encountered a god of a higher dimension than him, which made him a little puzzled. "Hey, I feel that Lord Realm King is so powerful." This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Damn, Yangqing's eyes flashed, returning to normal darkness, concealing the shock in his heart. "I'm amazing." The King of the Northern Realm was stunned for a moment, then turned around and laughed secretly. Qing actually said I'm amazing, ha ha ha. On the other side, Yangqing stared blankly at the King of the Northern Realm with black eyes, and a huge wave was set off in his heart. What a great divinity that is. Just now, when he used the writing wheel to see through the soul of the King of the Northern Realm, he saw the soul of the King of the Northern Realm with his own eyes. What a huge soul it was, with golden dazzling light all over its body, like a momentary star, burning with dazzling light. The King of the Northern Realm stood there, with a dark galaxy behind him. He stepped on the Milky Way. It was huge and boundless. His divine nature seemed to be boundless, and it seemed to merge with the entire Northern Galaxy. This is the Supreme God of the Northern Galaxy. Yangqing swallowed his saliva. It was true that this Realm King's combat power was different from his own, but the terrifying divinity shocked him to the extreme. Afterwards, he used his reincarnation eye to observe himself, and he saw his soul and body in an instant. Chapter 548 Back to Nova. Shin. Physically, there is not a little bit of divinity. Soul, divinity is as tall as ordinary people. Compared to the terrifying divine light of the Northern Realm King, Yangqing was fully aware of the gap between ordinary mortals and gods. This is the absolute gap between dimensions, which cannot be filled by power. Between humans and gods, this is the difference in the nature of life, from acquired to innate, symbolizing the change in the meaning of life. He has always pursued this state. Just a glance, Yangqing was shocked by the divinity of the Northern Realm King. The latter showed a slight hint of resistance, and his peeping couldn't go on. This is the voluntary resistance of divinity, and it is impossible for mortals to make any objection. After the shock, Yangqing's heart became excited. Losing 1,000 combat power, but getting detailed information on divinity. This wave is not a loss. That's right, at a glance, Yangqing discovered where the so-called divinity came from. A soul is born with a soul, and a spiritual will is born from the soul. People with strong willpower have a high degree of spirituality, and then extend outward from the spiritual power, integrate into the void of the universe, obtain information and materials of the universe, and feed back their own spiritual power. They will obtain divinity. The gods are born from heaven and earth, and are born with a huge divinity. If mortals want to become such people, they need to cultivate their own realm. This state is the understanding of all things in the world and the control of the rules. It sounds mysterious, but it is how much the spirit is integrated into the void Rongcheng. After gaining more divinity, the quantitative change promotes the qualitative change, and the dimensional level of the creature will be changed by the universe and become a god. This is God. In terms of combat power, God may not be much stronger than the creatures in the universe, but in the dimension, the understanding of the rules of the universe is too much worse. After that, it took a while. Yangqing continued to observe the King of the Northern Realm, and then spent 100,000 combat power to exchange some information and cultivation methods about spiritual power from the system. These are all worth it, because just when the 3-month deadline was up, Yangqing opened his eyes with a happy smile on his face. Success. Combining the information obtained from Samsara Eye and the secret books about spiritual power, Yangqing finally created a mysterious book called 3 Treasures Magic Art. The 3 Treasures magic technique was created by combining the secret books in many systems, such as the method of self-cultivation, the method of soul sublimation, and the way of rules. Aiming at every void in the universe, it can react and cultivate the strongest method. What is the difference between man and God? It's the soul, the spirit. The gods can make perfect use of their power and exert 100% of the power under their control, while human beings have limits. They may be able to reach 99.9%, but they cannot be perfect. 3 months have come, Ching, you should leave. The king of the northern realm still hadn't forgotten about this. He came to Yang Qing's side and reminded him. Hee, I see. Thank you Lord Zhuang for taking care of him during this time. Yang Qing thanked him with a smile. The king of the northern realm was stunned, and felt that the person on the opposite side seemed to be a little different. From the feeling, it seems that his body has a breath that is similar to his own. But how is this possible? When he was puzzled, Yang Qing had already pressed the middle and index fingers of his right hand between his eyebrows. Just a flash of effort has disappeared in front of him. Yang Qing left this time, but came to Xinxing, the place where the 3,000 Saiyans stayed. As soon as he appeared, he was discovered by Dadara, who was training himself hard in the gravity room at the moment. Master. Big Elder. Dadala noticed Yang Qing at first sight, and then Duo Li, Ruo Lan and others found him coming, with excited expressions on their faces. After scanning the 5 people at a glance, Yang Qing nodded secretly. These 5 people are the most talented among the Saiyans, and the hearts are also good. At this moment, their combat power, the weakest, is around 30,000. Of course, this is also their own reason, teaching them how to become stronger. Are you okay? After greeting, the expressions of the 5 people were all depressed and lost. We're all okay, just Star Vegeta. Todori cried. That was their hometown, and it was destroyed when they got news a few days ago. Together with the huge number of Saiyans, all were wiped out. Elder, we thought you were too. Ruola cried and hugged Yang Qing. Don't worry, I'm fine. Yang Qing patted Ruolan with a heavy face, comforting the 5, are you all okay on the new star? This. Stoyart hesitated for a moment, and then said disappointedly, although the 5 of us are powerful, we have no identity, and the 3,000 Saiyans will not listen to us. Elder, they've been making a fuss about finding Frieza to take revenge recently. Todori said loudly, Frieza is so powerful, we've stopped it several times, and we can't hold back. Hearing this, Yang Qing's face immediately sank. Frieza. After he eliminated Kevela, he originally wanted to eliminate the source of the scourge immediately. However, after careful consideration, he gave up the plan. As a result, compared to Kevela after training, Frieza is no longer challenging for Yang Qing. If Kevela, he has to use a lot of effort to destroy it, then Frieza, it can be said that it is easy to destroy. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Can kill each other. Second, Frieza threw it to the future Sun Wukong, which was also a training for Sun Wukong and Vegeta. Moreover, he also thought about using the plot development to go to that other time and space, and meet the really powerful enemies there for a while. Compared to the time and space that Trunks went to, this time and space would be much more boring. The third reason is that he intends to use these years to cultivate his own 3 treasures magic technique, trying to complete his own dimension level. Yang Qing made a specific division of the dimensional level of the Longzhu world, such as the level of the Earth God, which becomes the god of stars, and then the god of the star system, and then the god of the galaxy, which is the level of the king of the realm, and then the god of the star system. The high point, the great realm king, and finally the realm king god, which is the highest god of the universe. As for the god of destruction, the dimensional level is actually the same as that of the Kaiwang god, but the difference in combat power between the 2 sides is too great. What a bunch of idiots. Said in a cold voice, Yang Qing's face was a little ugly. Chapter 549 Shin. Although Frieza is not a great master in front of him, but for these Saiyans who are still at the lowest level, he can destroy them with a single finger, and he doesn't even need to transform. Superior. Among the Saiyans he brought, the 5 were the highest in terms of strength and the best in terms of talent. He originally intended to cultivate them into the hope of the next generation of Saiyans. However, he counted their strength, but not the temperament of these Saiyans. Not to mention how many of the 3,000 Saiyans are the elders of these 5 people. The identities of these 5 people alone cannot convince the crowd. As for their use of coercion to rule the Saiyans, that's even less likely. Who knows, on top of the 5 of them, there is an undead Prince Vegeta. Moreover, the hearts of these 5 people are also kind, and they are not the kind of guys who will rule the Saiyans by force. Come out with me, I'll see what these guys want to do. Do you want to go to heaven? Yang Qing's tone was very bad, which meant that he was angry. Indeed, they desperately saved their lives for these guys, but these people didn't cherish it, and even wanted to kill themselves. Did they feel powerful? 3 minutes later, Yang Qing came outside. He took off into the sky, followed by 5 apprentices. At the moment of the new star, a large area has been transformed by the Saiyans, and many buildings have been built. Because it is a fighting nation, so don't think about how beautiful these buildings will be. It looks like it's all rudimentary. After ascending into the sky, Yang Qing saw these Saiyans in his eyes with just one glance. The Saiyans living on this planet are indeed boring. For the belligerents, fighting is the only pursuit. It turned out that they could also go to other planets to invade and occupy and fight. But since surviving here, it's been boring. What do those little dolls want to do? King Vegeta is still in the hands of Frieza, and our Vegeta star has also been destroyed, and the elders, I'm afraid it's the worst, they don't let us take revenge. Wait a little longer, the most powerful ones are also forbearance. I want to explode again, I'm afraid they will be useless. On the ground, 3 or 4 Saiyans gathered together and discussed each other. Suddenly, one of the Saiyans looked up to the sky, and after a meal, a smile appeared on his face. Hey, look, those 5 little spots are out again. What did they want to do? No, you look at the man in front of them, it seems a little familiar. At this time, many Saiyans recognized the person flying in the front, and their hearts were shocked, and then they reacted, and their faces changed greatly. Big Elder. The Great Elder is not dead, ha ha ha, look. That's the Great Elder. At this moment, the Saiyans standing outside were all excited. Among the Saiyans, there are 2 powerful people who make the Saiyans most proud. One is King Vegeta, and the other is the Great Elder. In the eyes of all Saiyans, the Great Elder is the most powerful person in the Saiyan nation. Even King Vegeta may not be as good as the Great Elder. As long as the Great Elder is there, they are not afraid of everything. Moreover, the strength and prestige of the Great Elder is enough to lead them. Come out quickly, the Elder is back, we Saiyans have hope. Such a voice spread throughout the entire Saiyan nation, and many Saiyans rushed out with excitement. When they saw the figure flying high in the sky, their eyes lit up. It's really the Great Elder, that's all right now. At this time, Yang Qing also stopped in midair, his eyes swept away, and he looked at the high platform built by the Saiyans in the middle. The high platform is wide enough to accommodate 3,000 people. Now, all the Saiyans gather for me on the high platform in the middle, and I have something to say. In just an instant, Yang Qing's order came into play. The 3,000 Saiyans didn't hesitate at all, they just flew up and rushed to the high platform in the middle. After all 3,000 people had arrived, Yang Qing and his 5 apprentices slowly descended. Elder, Vegeta was destroyed by Frieza. Elder, Prince Vegeta is still under Frieza, and he's kept in the dark and doesn't know anything. Elder, what should we do? Just as soon as he landed, countless voices rang in his ears, causing Yang Qing to frown. Be quiet first. Yang Qing stretched out his hands and pressed them down slowly. The 3,000 Saiyans calmed down and looked at Yang Qing expectantly. Star Vegeta was destroyed, and I only found out not long ago. I left Star Vegeta before to get the power to protect Star Vegeta, but the sky is not as good as human. I got the power, but still didn't catch up on time. Quote. Speaking of this, Yang Qing couldn't help but feel unwilling, but he couldn't help it. However, since things are already like this, we can only continue to develop. Fortunately, King Vegeta and I established a new star and moved you over before the disaster. When I moved you over again, I didn't tell you why. Now, I tell you. Yang Qing's tone paused and sank. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. We are the last hope left by me and King Vegeta to the Saiyan nation. As soon as these words came out, the 3,000 Saiyans were in an uproar, and an incredible look appeared on their faces. I can't tell you too much. I can only let you know that we have long known that Star Vegeta will face disaster. We have tried to prevent this disaster, and we have worked hard to become stronger and left hope, but the result has been still haven't escaped the demise of Vegeta. But, we haven't been exterminated yet. You who are here are the last hope. Therefore, Yang Qing's face turned cold, and his eyes were full of coldness. You stay here well for me, don't think too much of yourself, your strength, in front of Frieza, can't even hold a finger. Remember to me that you who survived are with the hope of the Saiyans, and the lives dedicated by those who died are left to you. So, from now on, let me stay on this new star honestly and work hard to become stronger. Only when you are strong can you hope for revenge. After speaking, Yang Qing turned around and left, leaving behind a group of Saiyans with slow faces and complex expressions. Chapter 550 Divinity Blooms. Shin. Yang Qing's words completely calmed these Saiyans. No matter whether the words of the first elder are reasonable or not, the position of the other party in the clan at the moment is no one else can compare. They don't want to listen, they have to listen. In the entire Saiyan family, it can be said that only Yang Qing can suppress all Saiyan conflicts and resolve everything forcefully. Because he is the most powerful and the most awesome. After that, Yang Qing brought 5 people to the room. In my eyes, the recent achievements of you guys are not bad. Among them, Stoyart, your combat power has reached 60,000, and your progress is very rapid. Glancing at the 5 people, based on the breadth of the 5 people, Yang Qing probably made an estimate, and felt relieved. These 5 people are also his apprentices. If their strength is weak, he will naturally not be happy. Kurayat is second, the combat power is 55,000. Ruolin, you need to work hard, your combat power is still a little weak. After listing the strengths of the 5 people one by one, Yang Qing said solemnly. In the Dragon Ball world, there are many strong people, and they will destroy the stars at every turn. If they don't have enough power, they can't survive at all. Yes, Master, the 5 said respectfully. Then, among the 5, Kurayat hesitated, and finally asked, Master, Frieza, are we really not going to take revenge? Frieza. Yang Qing looked at Kurayat with a smile on his face. Frieza is nothing. The 5 were shocked. In the eyes of the 5 of them, Frieza was already so powerful, but in the eyes of the master, it was nothing. And according to what they know about Yang Qing, he is not a person who likes to brag. In other words, their master already has the strength to deal with Frieza. Just when they were shocked by this conclusion, Yang Qing said another sentence. His brother Kavira is a really scary character, but fortunately, I have already dealt with him. Yang Qing with a laughing voice passed into their ears, making the 5 people shocked. You mean, Frieza has a stronger brother? Stoyart said in surprise, and then, Master, you have defeated his brother. Not to defeat, but to kill. I killed his brother and made him disappear from the universe. Yang Qing's face was cold, and his eyes were very sharp. Then, Frieza, Dodori asked, with hatred in her eyes. Frieza destroyed their hometown, in which her parents and brothers died at the hands of that demon. Frieza, there will naturally be a younger generation of our family who will bring him down in the future. Yang Qing took a deep look at Duoduo Li. He is nothing in my eyes, but he can be used as a grind for the younger generation. Sharpening. The 5 people were very puzzled. They didn't understand Yang Qing's thoughts, but they didn't ask much. What about Prince Vegeta? He's still kept in the dark by Frieza and doesn't know the reason for the whole thing, Kurayat asked. Vegeta. Yang Qing showed a sullen expression on his face. Thinking of King Vegeta's request to him, he sighed secretly in his heart. When the right time comes, I will let him return here. This matter is up to me. Take charge, you don't have to worry. The five looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. No matter how you say it, Vegeta is the king character of the Saiyan nation, that is, the future king. Fall into the hands of the enemy, no matter what. After that, Yang Qing waved 5 people back, and he had to try for a while before he could master the method of becoming a god. After the 5 people left Yang Qing's place, they began to spread the news that Yang Qing told them indoors. When they heard that Yang Qing had eliminated his brother who was stronger than Frieza, the Saiyans were excited and smiled excitedly. They were shocked on the one hand and excited on the other. The Saiyan family finally came out with such a powerful character. The entire universe knows how powerful Frieza is. But even so, in front of Yang Qing, it was still not enough to see. In the room, Yang Qing closed his eyes and began to cultivate his spiritual power according to the method of the 3 treasures. When he was in the world of pirates, Yang Qing's mental strength was actually not weak. The ability to control the fruit originally relies on the spiritual power to control everything. As his ability improves, the spiritual power will naturally rise. At this time, all he has to do is to condense his spiritual power. There are 3 treasures in the sky, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and people have the 3 treasures in spirit. The 3 treasures, gather for me. In the soul, Withwell is the general and spiritual power is the army. Yang Qing let out a loud shout. In an instant, the golden aura of spiritual power began to spin rapidly, turning into a huge vortex. The whole body of this vortex is golden, crystal clear like liquid and body. They began to turn faster and faster, more and more quickly. Gradually, in the center of the vortex, it began to condense into golden beads. This bead seems to be condensed from liquid and body, and it is completely solidified, and its density is much stronger than before. Immediately after, under Yang Qing's control, the golden beads were completely stabilized. At this time, Yang Qing just opened his eyes and exhaled softly. Phew, it's successful. Spiritual power is condensed. From now on, I can perfectly control my spirit and use my spirit to control my body, and my reaction power is even faster than before. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The next step is to continue to build spiritual power, and then let it bloom with divinity and gather my divinity. Of course, this will take Yang Qing a long time to complete, and it will not be successful overnight. As early as Zhuangxing, Yang Qing had already decided to take this matter of becoming a god as his next most important task. Therefore, for a long period of time, Yang Qing stayed on the new star to cultivate his spiritual power. A year later, Yang Qing's spiritual bead was the size of a basketball, and the golden light was shining like a small sun, illuminating his whole body. As soon as his thoughts move, mental power will radiate out, controlling every cell and nerve of his. At this time, Yang Qing's expression became solemn and nervous. Next, it's time to see if the divinity can bloom. The blossoming of divinity is like a flash in the pan. If it doesn't succeed, it will have to accumulate again for a long period of time. Success or not depends on now. Chapter 551 Fusion Void. Shin. Yang Qing took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and concentrated all his thoughts on the basketball-sized golden bead in the sea of consciousness of his soul. The golden beads were dazzling, like the sun, releasing light and heat that illuminated the entire body. This is completely different from the previous feeling. When the mental power is not condensed, the mental power is scattered, and there is no feeling of knowing everything and controlling everything. The human body is obscure to the world, and can only rely on the naked eye to distinguish things. At this time, it is not that kind of feeling at all. Even with closed eyes and relying on mental touch, you can perceive everything around you. This time, when the divinity bloomed, Yang Qing needed to maintain himself in the best state. He closed his eyes and calmed down. After 5 days, the golden bead in the sea of soul consciousness shuddered. Immediately after, this golden bead burst into the sky. This is a space-time dimension that cannot be seen by the naked eye, but Yang Qing can clearly perceive it. In that inexplicable dimensional space, the golden beads suddenly burst open from the top. Immediately afterwards, the golden liquid and body inside rushed out from the top as thick as mercury slurry. In an instant, golden light radiated all over the sky, and this space was illuminated extremely brightly. At this moment, Yang Qing's forehead was dripping with sweat. He was very nervous, and paid attention to the changes in the golden beads at this time. At this time, all his mind was concentrated on this golden bead, trying to control it to complete his own changes. The lead mercury-like liquid and body slowly flowed out towards the sky. Gradually, this golden light blooms, bright and bright like the sun, bringing light and heat to the surrounding space. Immediately afterwards, after an unknown amount of time, the golden light liquid and body in the golden beads were all released. At this time, the golden light like a long strip is constantly extending towards the sky. With his extension, the original density of lead and mercury has become much thinner. Gradually, the strip began to twist slowly, becoming an S-shaped shape, like a human body. Then, time passed slowly. A full year has passed, and Yang Qing is suspended in the air with his knees crossed. The surroundings of his body seem to be shrouded in gold, releasing a charming and noble color. His sea of consciousness, the S-shaped golden strip resembling a human body, has now turned into a truly tall human body. Head, neck, arms, body, lower limbs, tail. The whole body is exuding bright gold, radiating high temperature and everything. He is 900 feet tall, standing in the void like a giant. At this moment, the face of this golden giant has not yet been revealed, but its body has already formed. A line of lines slowly appeared on his body, as if carving strange and mysterious runes. After another 6 months, the giant's face, nose, eyes, mouth, ears all appeared, and even thick golden hair grew on the top of his head. Lifelike, as if a real giant god dominates everything. Another 3 months have passed, and the giant's entire body has been completely formed. There are delicate textures on his skin, which look mysterious and unusual, as if born from heaven and earth. Unimaginable dignity and majesty. Standing in the void, the giant closed his eyes, as if he had fallen into a heavy weight. Finally, he opened his eyes. Boom! The void in front suddenly trembled and shattered in an instant. The void is shaking, countless cracks appear in the sky, and there is a crazy vortex suction spreading to the edge, and everything that hits is distorted. It was also at this time that the golden giant god had a smile on his face. Success. God, I have finally reached this level. Standing in the void, he is 999 feet tall, with a majestic and solemn divinity rippling around him. This is a dimensional level that is completely different from ordinary gods, and is far beyond the level of ordinary creatures. Of course, at this moment, Yang Qing's level is the level of a god on a planet. There are countless such gods in the universe, and they are nothing. However, this represented his first step. He is a god that he has cultivated by himself. Unlike the mandate of the universe, he is stronger and more powerful, and his own strength is even greater, far exceeding that of ordinary gods. The next second, Yang Qing took a step and roared towards the void above his head. Roar! His body began to rise, and the golden light bloomed. After the 5 breaths, his body was already like a star. From a distance, the golden light was so bright that it really looked like a star. This is my limit, my divinity is 1 star. Yang Qing's eyes showed a clear look, and then the golden giant took 1 step and dissipated here. In reality, Yang Qing opened his eyes. In his dark eyes, there was a flash of gold, followed by the whites, and there were lines of dark lines inside, which were the eyes of reincarnation. In the end, everything returned to peace. The next step is to take my divine body into the universe, integrate the void of the universe, and see what kind of abilities the universe can give me. All gods have various incredible abilities, and different gods have different abilities. And Yangqing's self-cultivation to become a god, what kind of ability will he have? Even he himself does not know. Taking one step, a golden light rushed out from Yangqing's Nuan palace, instantly disappeared into the atmosphere of the new star, and entered the universe. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. After stepping into the vacuum of the universe, Yangqing's divinity was suddenly released, and the huge golden body like a star stepped in the void. How majestic and majestic, but in the universe, it seemed so insignificant. Integrate the void, feel the void. Muttering these 8 words, Yangqing's golden body spread out, and the huge golden stars dissipated, turning into little golden stars and disappearing in place. Gradually, an inexplicable feeling flowed through Yangqing's heart. It's amazing, he seems to suddenly understand something. He understands something, but he doesn't know the specifics, he can't touch it or see it. It was as if all of a sudden, a large piece of information was stuffed into his mind, but he didn't understand what the information was, because he didn't read it, and because he didn't understand it. On Nova, indoors, Yangqing's body is undergoing strange changes at this moment. Chapter 552 The World's First Martial Arts Club. Shin. There was a red aura rippling around him, flickering, and a look of pain appeared on his face. And the most shocking thing is that his originally black hair is actually developing towards red, and the red is still crimson. His face is getting younger, towards the appearance of 16 or 17 years old. This is a very strange, very abnormal change. And if Yangqing could see what he looked like at this time, he would definitely understand. This is what the legendary Super Saiyan looked like after he transformed. He became a god, and even made his own genes move towards the level of Super Saiyan. But unfortunately, this appearance only lasted for about 3 minutes before calm was restored. Yangqing's hair was still black, and he looked 24 or 5 years old, and the pain disappeared. In the universe's starry sky, Yangqing's divine body stretched his body. I just felt like I had slept for a long time and had a weird dream. He glanced around a few times, and an inexplicable smile appeared on his golden face. I can feel 7 or 8 of the gods around here. It's hard to imagine how many gods there are in this vast universe. After becoming a god at this moment, Yangqing can also clearly feel the gods around him. This may be his powerful relationship, because he can feel other gods from a long distance, but other gods can't feel him. Smiling, Yangqing turned his head and took a step forward, disappearing into the void. The next moment, his indoor body opened his eyes. After the divinity covered the body, a little bit of divinity was also planted in his body, causing himself to undergo a strange change. Then, Yangqing's eyes flashed, and the clothes on his body changed into a black martial arts uniform in the next moment, just like the Black Wukong in the original book. Let him show a bit of mystery and coldness, and he looks very imposing. Afterwards, it took another half a year for Yangqing to completely stabilize his strength after becoming a god. In the past 2 or 3 years, his combat effectiveness has not improved much, but his actual combat ability has reached a satisfactory level. First of all, after becoming a god, he can control 100% of his strength and exert his own limits. Moreover, because of the existence of the King Fist, he can even break through his own limits and reach a level that even he can't even estimate at present. Level. It seems that there is no increase in strength, but in fact Yangqing is much stronger than before. This is the effect of becoming a god, a subtle change. With a smile on his face, Yangqing walked out of the room. In the outside world, after 2 or 3 years, the Saiyans have changed again. First of all, in the Saiyan buildings, there are a lot of wild beasts. They were tamed and became the most powerful mount partners of the Saiyans, which enhanced the strength of the Saiyans. Noticing that Yangqing came out, all the Saiyans respected and saluted Yangqing. No need to be more polite, I'm also very happy to see your strength steadily increasing. Yangqing said with a smile. In the past 2 years, because of stabilization, the Saiyans have also begun to combine, and new children have appeared. These new lives are the inheritance of the Saiyans. As long as their descendants continue to grow, the race of Saiyans will exist forever. Elder, we haven't fought for 2 years, and are about to fall ill. Is there anything to do? When walking through the Saiyan street, a strong Saiyan asked embarrassedly, scratching his head. Hee, I know that you have rarely fought recently, and your body is almost rusted, so this time you came out for this matter. Yang Qing said with a smile. Oh, what is the elder's order? We must obey. Saiyans are a fighting clan, and it is impossible to stay idle. In just 2 or 3 years, they couldn't calm down. I'm going to hold a martial arts meeting to let you fight freaks vent. The martial arts club, Saiyans asked suspiciously. In the past, Saiyans fought outside all year round, so there was no martial arts club. The #1 martial arts club in the world. Yang Qing nodded. Within the Saiyans, there is a competition of strength. Those who are willing can sign up to participate. After fighting each other, it can also promote the enhancement of your strength. And the referees are presided over by Stoyard and the others. 5 referees will help you decide the top 10. Yang Qing said slowly, so that these Saiyans also understood. So, don't they have to participate in Stoyat? Saiyan asked curiously. Of course, the 5 of them are more powerful than you, and there is no need to participate. In addition, from now on, the 5 of them are the sons of inheritance among us Saiyans, representing the hope of our Saiyans in the future. Many of the Saiyans showed dissatisfaction on their faces, but because Yang Qing was here, he didn't say a word, just made eye contact with each other, and wanted to try to find these 5 people in private. Yang Qing naturally saw the secret communication of these people in his eyes, just smiled and didn't care. If 5 people can't even beat these ordinary Saiyans, then his cult level is too bad. After a while, he turned to leave, and ordered to go down. The #1 martial arts conference in the world will naturally be presided over, so there is no need for him to worry about it. When Yang Qing got up and walked away, the remaining Saiyans made eye contact and immediately made a decision. Saya, you are the strongest warrior among us. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The combat power is 13,000, and it was once praised by King Vegeta. It is up to you to challenge those 5 little guys. I don't believe that those 5 guys are really as powerful as the Great Elder said. One of the older Saiyans shouted. However, the Great Elder asked us to prepare for the world's #1 martial arts conference. We disobeyed his orders and challenged the Son of Inheritance. Is that okay? The man named Saya hesitated after hearing this, but he can also see to the excited look in his eyes. Don't worry, the Saiyan family is the supreme power, and the Elder will not blame you. The older Saiyan said humanely. Saya confirmed it now, then looked at each other with the people around him, and nodded. Okay, I'll go. I've been wanting to try the Elder's apprentice for a long time. How powerful it is. A group of people took off quickly, and then came outside the house of the 5 of them. Chapter 553 Shin. In the house, 5 people were sweating profusely doing cultivation. Their faces were hideous, and their body aura was strong. These 5 people are exercising themselves under 10 times the gravity, and they are challenging their own limits every moment. This is also what Yang Qing asked them to do. Only by constantly squeezing their potential can they break through the limit at the fastest speed and gain powerful strength. Just then, the doorbell rang suddenly. The expressions of the 5 people suddenly stopped, and then Stoyard looked at Dadala and said with a difficult expression, Dadala, go and see who is here. Okay, Dadala responded, moved to the door step by step with difficulty, and then pressed the switch. The heavy and thick door opened with a hum sound, and Dadara instantly felt that his body was much more relaxed, and then he stepped out quickly, and the door closed with a bang. When Dadara saw the scene in front of him, he couldn't help but be stunned. How are you? Dadala asked strangely. Why not us? The tall old Saiyan laughed. Dadala, we are here to challenge you. Challenge. Dadara's face was even more strange, and he naturally knew in his heart that compared to the Saiyan elders in front of him, their power far exceeded them. The 2 sides are no longer of the same level, so what is the challenge? Call Karayat and the others out, you little brat can't handle such a scene. The Gordian said loudly. Little brat. Dadala was stunned for a moment, then came back to his senses, with some anger in his eyes. He is the most talented person under the master. After receiving the master's teaching, he has already been able to control his own power skillfully. Although he is worse than the others, he is still much stronger than the Saiyan in front of him. Since you are here to challenge the 5 of us, let's start with me. I am the second to last among the 5. If you defeat me, you can challenge the other 3 brothers. Dadala's expression was not so gentle, with obvious anger in his eyes. After all, he is a child at heart and can't stand provocation. The Gothayan hesitated for a moment. Dadala was only about 10 years old now. He was really poor. He didn't want to bear the reputation of bullying the weak. He glanced back and turned to Seiya. An inquiring look. Seiya just hesitated for a moment, then nodded. If that's the case, then I will defeat you first, and then challenge them. However, Dadala, fighting is fighting. I will not be merciful. If you are injured, don't blame me. Seiya paused and said with a serious face. No, Dadala exclaimed. Afterwards, the 2 sides looked at each other, nodded, and flew into the distance. In the central city area of the Saiyans, there is a large platform, which is just used for the duel. Seiya and Dadara flew up to the high platform, their eyes became sharp, and they stared at each other closely. The old Saiyan stood on the side of the high platform, and after looking at the 2 of them, he raised his hand and shouted, "Battle, start." In an instant, Dadara bent his knees, and the whole person seemed to be a longbow full of power, and then suddenly shot off the string. The speed was so fast that it turned into a lightning, but it was in front of Seiya in an instant. Seiya, who was 20 meters away from the opposite, immediately changed his expression. He was shocked to find that the strength of this child was beyond his imagination. His fist suddenly turned towards his face, and then a dull sound came out, and he actually slid back more than 10 meters before he stopped. At this time, the expressions of the Saiyans who were watching the game showed disbelief. On the top of a mountain, Yang Qing sat cross-legged, eyes closed, and a smile appeared on his face. Observing the battle of Dadara with mental power, can get the information between the 2 in great detail. How is it possible? Seiya, he was knocked back with a single blow. My God, this kid isn't 10 years old yet. He seems to have said he was only second to last out of those 5 boys. The Saiyans were all shocked by this terrible fact. Before they didn't understand what it means to be ranked second, but now they completely understood. On the stage, Seiya's face could not be hung. He is 26 years old, and his talent is also very good. Among these Saiyans, his fighting power is the strongest. However, just now, he was actually repelled by a little guy who was almost a whole generation younger than him. Damn boy. There was no delay at all. Seiya shook his numb hands, and then speeded up and disappeared in place. His speed was equally terrifying, and almost instantly, he reached the front of Dadara and threw a punch. Dadala raised his fist to greet him, but after a breath, his expression was stunned. What about people? Seiya actually disappeared, and after throwing his fist, he lost the other person's figure in front of him. Just then, Seiya's voice appeared behind him. Boy, here I am. The strong wind swept his neck, and the pain caused Dadala's complexion to change suddenly. You are still too tender. Ha 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 ha. The laughter spread out, and Seiya stood behind Dadara and struck his neck with a knife. It's been decided. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Everyone below shook their heads. Dadara's strength is very strong, and they are all shocked, but they have too little experience in battle, and they were swayed by Seiya's false move. However, at this moment, Dadara's figure had turned around abruptly without knowing when. Seiya's fist has been swung out, but his expression has changed drastically. Too soon. There is no way for anyone to turn around at an incredible speed after he has already thrown his fists. Even, He clearly saw that the opponent was coming first, and those small fists were faster than his own speed. Be quick. This child who is less than 10 years old, his speed has far surpassed himself. This means that the strength of the other party is far higher than his own. But how is this possible? Bang! The dull voice came out, and all the Saiyans watching the battle fell into silence. Some people swallowed their saliva, their eyes full of disbelief. In the field, Dadara's fist was tightly pressed against Sai Ya's stomach, while Sai Ya's fist was hanging in front of the opponent's forehead. It was an inch away, but couldn't get out of it. Chapter 554 I am Saya. Shin. Gradually, a painful expression appeared on Seiya's face. The latter covered his stomach, took a few steps back, and then sat down on the high platform, sweat dripping from his forehead. Looking at Dadala's expression, it was already a shock. You. Seiya pointed to Dadala for a long time, but still did not say the second half of the sentence. However, everyone understood what he meant. Agreed, Dadala said indifferently. Defeat his opponent and satisfy his childish vanity. Originally, he was often bullied. However, from this moment on, he has become a real powerhouse. Saya knew that when he was on Star Vegeta, he was the genius of the younger generation of Saiyan family. However, he couldn't even hold on to a single move in his own hands. Oneself, become stronger, and very strong. Confidence, pride appeared on the face of this less than 10-year-old child. With strides, Dadara left here. Watching Dadala leave, the Saiyans looked unwilling, but there was nothing they could do. I didn't expect that this 10-year-old child under the elders could be so powerful. It's really surprising. Seiya was helped off the high platform with a complicated expression on his face. Looking at the building at the top of the distant mountain, Seiya murmured, Elder. The disciple who has only been taught for a period of time is already so powerful. If he can become the disciple of the strongest person in the clan, how powerful can he become? With a look of firmness in his eyes, Seiya made a decision that would change his future enormously. At the top of the mountain, Yang Qing frowned slightly. Dadala's changes were easily seen by him. After all, he is still young. Shaking his head, Yang Qing ignored it. Everyone has their own growth and changes, he cannot cover everything. After Dadala left the high platform, he entered the training room. After saying hello to Stoyart and others, he started to practice again. Dadara, who is looking for us outside? Dodori asked curiously. It's the other Saiyans who want to test our power. Dadala said with a smile. What's the result? The four of them looked over curiously. We are the disciples of the Great Elder, and we are naturally the most powerful among the Saiyans. Dadala said confidently. The other four looked at each other and frowned, feeling the change in Dadara. It turned out that Dadala was the youngest, the most polite and the most humble little guy. But when they came back after going out this time, they seemed to have a touch of pride and arrogance. This is exactly the same flaw that other ordinary Saiyans are born with, and it is also the deadliest. Dadara, what did you seem to have experienced after you went out? Kurayat asked with a frown. Yes, they delusionally want to challenge the five of us, but they don't know that compared with theirs, our strength is already the difference between heaven and earth. Dadala said with a big laugh, it's a bit over the top. Stoyart. On the side Kurayat gestured to the latter, and Stoyart understood and nodded. Then, Stoyart walked towards Dadala. Dadala, I haven't tried it with you for a long time. Come on, senior brother, consider your strength. Dadala was stunned for a moment, and then she said to herself, I haven't played against my senior brother for a long time. Then, without hesitation, he took a stance. This scene made the other four frown. It seems that it is necessary to let him know that he is still far away. A smile appeared on the corner of Stoyart's mouth, and Dadala's change made him very uncomfortable. The Great Elder chose the five of them because of their kindness and steadfastness in their hearts, without the impetuousness and impulsiveness of other Saiyans. However, the changes in Dadala have left this behind. Next, the two are in the gravity chamber, ready to start the battle. The gravity in the gravity chamber was not removed, so it was difficult for both of them to move. In comparison, the powerful Stoyart is naturally a lot easier. His speed was also very fast, and in just a few steps, he had already arrived in front of Dadara, and then threw a punch. Dadala also quickly waved his right hand, but after the punch was thrown, his expression changed. Gone. Just like Seiya, Stoyart actually disappeared in front of his eyes. In just an instant, Dadara reacted. Fake trick. Then, he used all his strength to turn around, blocking the blow just like before. However, he was disappointed. Under the influence of gravity, his speed was more than 10 times slower, and he had to use all his strength to even move. Just when he had this idea, a palm knife had been gently slashed on his neck. The severe pain immediately made Dadala let out a scream, but he did not faint. It hurts. Dadala, your strength is not enough, you are too weak. Stoyart's voice came into his ears, if this blow is an enemy, it is enough to kill you. Dadala immediately changed color, and then sweated profusely. He understood. I'm sorry, brother. I'm so stupid. The reason we are stronger than the other Saiyans is. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Because of our kind personality, down-to-earth style, and modest and prudent way of doing things, the elders have taken a fancy to us, and this is how we teach us how to fight and how to become stronger. One day, if you abandon such a concept, then you will become vulnerable. Dadala, you must remember. Stoyart said slowly, his voice very serious. Dadala nodded again and again. He thought that before, he thought he was very powerful, there was a feeling of invincibility, and he was ashamed and angry. I was wrong, I will definitely remember this lesson. Thank you, brother. Dadala bowed and apologized. Just know what's wrong, come and train, you've been delayed for a long time. Kurayat came over, patted Dadala on the shoulder, and said with a smile. Yeah, Dadara nodded. After that, the five started training again. In Yongqing's place, there is a figure standing in front of him at the moment. The figure's face was full of hesitation and tension, and he was even pinching the corners of his clothes. After a long time, the figure seemed to make up his mind and just took a step. Elder, I am Seiya. Chapter 555 Challenge the Milky Way. Shin. Yongqing is cross-legged on the top of the mountain, cultivating spiritual power. He was wearing a black martial arts uniform, looking a bit cold and mysterious. After hearing Seiya's voice, he slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were as calm as the lake, and the waves were not disturbed, but his eyes flashed, and he said lightly, "What are you doing here with me?" Seeing the person he admired the most, Seiya immediately became excited and took a few deep breaths before saying, "Big, great elder, can you teach me to practice? I want to be stronger." Cultivation. Yongqing put on a smile, then why do you want to become stronger? Those five want to become stronger because I want them to protect the entire Saiyan family. They are very courageous. After Seiya listened, he was stunned and didn't know how to answer. Those five people became stronger to protect the Saiyan family. It was the first time he heard of this reason, and he couldn't help but be shocked. So why is he so powerful? I don't know either. I just want to be stronger. Saiyan said embarrassedly. Saiyans are like this, with a kaji at heart, disdain to lie, they can say what they think. After hearing this, Yongqing couldn't help but smile, you have a little heart. Just in time, I'm going to go out during this time, so you can follow me. As for how much you can learn, it depends on your ability. Hearing Yongqing's words, Seiya immediately became excited. By the way, do you like to use swords? Suddenly, Yongqing suddenly threw such a sentence, which made Seiya stunned. Huh. When the brilliance flickered, in Seiya's surprised eyes, a long sword was born out of thin air in the hands of the first elder. Then, the elder threw the long sword to him. After Seiya caught it awkwardly, he heard Yongqing's next words. Practice well when you go back, and familiarize yourself with it first. Seiya was puzzled and wanted to ask again, but saw that the latter had closed his eyes. In desperation, Seiya had no choice but to fly back home with his long sword on his back. Along the way, he still couldn't understand why the Great Elder gave him such a sword. Could it be that the Great Elder thought he was suitable for using a sword? With a strange mentality, Seiya returned to the house, and then drew out his long sword, which was no different from what he usually saw. I tried to swipe a few times, but it was also a random hack without a routine, but with the power of the Saiyans, it was also fierce and mighty. I didn't understand it all the time, but Seiya didn't dare to ask the Great Elder indiscriminately. One was that he respected the Great Elder in his heart, and the other was that the power of the Great Elder really made him odd. It was not until 15 days later that the voice of the Great Elder came from his ear. "Come and find me on the top of the mountain, it's time for us to go." Seiya immediately cheered up and could finally start practicing. He put away his long sword, then quickly pulled up and flew towards the top of the mountain. After a while, he saw Yang Qing in a black martial arts uniform. "Elder," Seiya shouted respectfully after passing by. "Well, get ready to go." Yang Qing nodded, looking at Seiyan's unique fighting costume, frowning slightly, then pointed out, "You can't wear this." It was just a flash of light, and Seiya's body was changed into a black martial arts uniform, and a big blue character was engraved on the Shang's mouth and back. "Since there is you, let's take the aircraft and leave," Yang Qing said in a low voice, and then the two of them rode an aircraft, which turned into a streamer and rushed out of the atmosphere of the Nova 3 minutes later. "Elder, aren't we cultivating in Nova?" Seiya asked curiously. "Of course not, the practice is naturally carried out in the universe. Challenging the powerhouses from all walks of life will make your martial arts more perfect and stronger," Yang Qing explained with a smile. "Cultivation, one is to cultivate strength, speed, reaction, that is, combat power, and the other is realm, the mastery of martial arts, and the understanding of all things in the universe. The two are combined into one, azimuth practice. The nearest moment to the planet will arrive in about 5 days." Seiya looked at the dashboard and said curiously, "Just go there." "Well, first Elder, what are we going to do?" "Doing what?" A smile appeared on Yang Qing's mouth. "Challenge the entire galaxy." This sentence came out, but it made Seiya open his mouth in Pakistan, and he couldn't close it for a long time. 5 days later, Yang Qing and Seiya came to the planet Snoud. This is a very common scientific and technological civilization planet, and there are not many people with strong fighting power on it. Yang Qing asked Seiya to shoot, and after 3 days, the two left. "I'm so disappointed, these guys are not even as good at martial arts as the Saiyans." Yang Qing shook his head helplessly. To be honest, although Saiyans are not very skilled in martial arts, but because of the long battles, they are not bad in the entire universe. "It seems that the plan to challenge the Milky Way and complete my martial arts cultivation is still very difficult to complete." However, Yang Qing will not be impatient. He found Seiya as a helper. If he is not strong enough, he will take action. Although the combat power of more than 10,000 is far from enough compared to the strong, it is not enough for some ordinary people in the galaxy. Said, but it is already high above. A month later, the two have. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. After picking 10 planets in a row, there is still no gain. "Elder, these guys are too weak," Seiya complained. "Even if I suppress my strength, they are not my opponents." Glancing at Seiya, Yang Qing was also very helpless. Who would have thought that these guys in the Milky Way were so weak? After thinking for a while, Yang Qing gritted his teeth and said, "Give me a move towards the area ruled by Frieza, I don't believe it anymore." "As the first elder going to shoot Frieza?" Seiya said immediately, but he knew that the strength of the elder had already surpassed that of Frieza. "Don't talk nonsense, go ahead for me, this time, if your strength is less than 100,000, don't follow me," Yang Qing said fiercely. 100,000. Saya was shocked, then excited. Okay, I'll turn my head now. The spaceship's forward trend suddenly stagnated, and then it turned around and quickly turned into a streamer, heading towards where Frieza was. At this moment, in the area ruled by Frieza, a martial arts tournament that covers almost the entire northern galaxy is being prepared. An entire planet was used by Frieza to set up this martial arts meeting. The purpose was to select the strong to be his subordinates. Chapter 556 Victory. Shin. The news of Kevila's murder. Frieza had already received the news. Frieza was shocked by this incident. He is clear about his brother's strength. Although the two rarely fight against each other, he is very sure that the strength of that guy is probably comparable to his own. Such a strong man of the same level as himself was killed by others. And, until now, no one has even been able to find out who killed Kevila. I just heard that the man had blonde hair, and his breath was so strong that even a planet could not bear it. This time, the universe selection meeting has been going on for 3 years. The purpose is to select subordinates. As long as they are powerful people, they can obtain this qualification. This can be regarded as adding a sense of security to him, although in this big universe, there are very few people who are as tyrannical as himself. However, one more strong is always good. Sitting in the dome-topped building, Frieza looked at the noisy crowd below through the glass. There are martial arts platforms all over the planet, and the 10 in front of him are only the most powerful. After silently observing the battle on the stage for a while, Frieza asked in a cold voice. Is there any news about the murderer who killed Kevila? Ah, not yet. Lord Kavira and a planet have been completely destroyed in the universe. I really can't get any clues about that person. The man said with difficulty. There was fear in his eyes, for fear that Frieza would not be able to do anything. Happy to kill him on the spot. Trash. Fortunately, Frieza just cursed coldly, then turned around again and ignored him. What happened to those Saiyan brats? After a blink of an eye, Frieza asked again with a sneer on his face. The cosmic warrior in the combat uniform next to him was stunned for a moment, then nodded and smiled. They are all willing to serve the adults, and there is no resistance at all. HMPH, count them as acquaintances. Saiyans are just a group of wild monkeys, and they dare to resist me. Frieza snorted coldly. However, there was a twinkle in his eyes, and he remembered King Vegeta's transformation before his death, and his eyes became deep. When you're done using it, destroy them. He is still uneasy, always feeling that someday in the future, these Saiyans will do something very unfavorable to him. On the other side, the side of the planet that Frieza took. Yangqing and Saya have already landed here, looking at the space warriors coming and going, with all kinds of strange appearances. They can't help but be curious now. Some of these people's expressions are cold, some are cruel, some are smiling, and they are very kind, but without exception, these people are very powerful. The breath on their bodies is violent and sharp-edged, and they are all strong men from various planets in the universe. This time King Frieza selects the strong, as his subordinate. This is a cosmic warrior, the most honorable thing. I must succeed, must succeed. The two were walking, and there was a bald man beside him, who was 3 meters tall. At this time, he was curled up, very nervous, and kept talking. Elder, are we really going to compete with these guys here? Saya said nervously, his eyes drifting to the highest building involuntarily, but he knew that Frieza was there. If found, will it be destroyed directly on the spot? If you want to hone your martial arts and improve your combat effectiveness, just do as I say. As for Frieza, you shouldn't worry about it, it's all up to me. Yangqing spit out these 2 sentences lightly, which calmed Seiya's mood. After taking 2 deep breaths, Seiya took a big step forward, then stood under a competition platform, and spoke loudly to the applicants at the table. I want to sign up. Okay, state your race, name. Saiyan, Saya. The person who accepted the registration couldn't help but be stunned when they heard the Saiyan, then glanced at Seiya, and when they observed the whole, they nodded. Okay. I heard that the Saiyans have been destroyed, but I didn't expect to escape. Passed. Humph. Saya snorted coldly. The strong breath shocked the applicants' eyes with fear, and dared not say more. The Saiyans were destroyed by Frieza, and the spread in the universe was not very widespread. Only some special groups of people knew the news. Even Vegeta at this moment is still concealed and does not know the truth of the matter. Yang Qing's figure was erratic, standing quietly under the stage, watching Seiya ascend to the competition stage. He originally planned to meet the masters of Wubei Galaxy in person. Even if his strength is not as good as him, he can compress himself to absorb the opponent's understanding of martial arts. World affairs are all knowledgeable, and human feelings are the articles. Even people who are not as good as themselves can absorb knowledge from them. However, with Seiya around at the moment, it naturally saves him a lot of things. Saya's own strength is not weak compared to the various races in the universe. With his action, Yang Qing can save a lot of things. Moreover, through mental power, he can easily observe everything about his enemies. The game begins. The Saiyan family, Saya. The Bit family, Darth. On the competition stage, the referee stood in the middle and slammed his right hand down. The eyes of the two people on the stage became extremely sharp when the referee said the beginning. In just a moment, Saya rushed to the front of the man, and then made a false move, and it was already there. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Behind the opposite side, a fist was thrown suddenly. The opponent, although not as fast as Saya, has an incredible ability to adapt. It was only the moment when his head was bent, and the strong wind whistled, and Saya's fist was evaded by him. Immediately following, Seiya attacked again. Darth made a sudden jump and flew high into the sky, ready to command a high altitude and use the gravity of the landing to deliver a fatal blow to Seiya. But at this moment, Seiya, who was standing on the stage, showed a sneer. Being a target in the air. His right hand slammed upwards, and with a sound of "ha," a light blue qigong wave directly charged into the sky, cutting through the void. Darth's expression changed greatly, and he dodged immediately. But just as he dodged, Seiya on the ground had disappeared. "I'm on top of your head." Saya's voice came, and Das's face had become desperate. Bang! A split from top to bottom directly hit Das in the head and slammed it to the ground. Saiyan, victory. Chapter 557 Three Swords. Shin. The referee's voice is not loud but not too small, and it spreads far. It stands to reason that Frieza, who is nearly 10,000 meters away from here, would not be able to hear it if he didn't pay attention. But by coincidence, Frieza was thinking about the Saiyans at the moment. The word Seiya immediately flashed a coldness in his eyes, and involuntarily, he turned his head to the stage where Seiya competed. With just one glance, the ruthless emperor's expression suddenly changed. Saiyan. The iconic tale broke into Frieza's eyes abruptly, stimulating his nerves. Let Frieza for a moment, it is killing intent. But after a while, a smile appeared in his eyes again. This Saiyan actually came to participate in the tournament I set up. It seems that he didn't know that Star Vegeta was destroyed by me. The wild monkeys are really stupid guys. Thinking of Prince Vegeta who surrendered to him, and the Saiyan who ended the battle in the distance, Frieza suddenly felt a lot better. The Saiyan family is what he is most worried about, fearing that they will become Super Saiyans in the future, threatening his position. But I have to say that this kind of irritating and exciting feeling of walking on the tightrope will make people intoxicated. After watching Seiya carefully for a while, a sneer appeared at the corner of Frieza's mouth. The strength is average, not enough to be a threat to me at all. A guy with 10,000 combat power is indeed nothing to Frieza. After taking another look, Frieza ignored it. Just in my heart, I remember that Saiyan. If he can make it to the final, then he doesn't mind letting that wild monkey play under his command. After all, it's not easy to stop someone else's kindness. On the competition stage, Seiya jumped off the stage and joined Yang Qing. Elder, I won. Saya was very happy, and he was very excited by the good start of the first battle. Yes, but your strength is still a little too weak. There are still 3 days before the next game. I will train you well, and try to increase your combat effectiveness during this time. Yang Qing nodded. Cultivation. Saiyan's eyes lit up. Recently, on the aircraft and on various planets, Yang Qing taught him to practice swordsmanship, but the rude Saiyans can do such fine work. The two left the competition area and came to the rented room. This is a house with more than 300 square meters, and the interior is very spacious, which is very suitable for space warriors to practice in it. In the afternoon, after the two of them had lunch, they stood in the middle of the living room. Pick up your sword, I will teach you a set of swordsmanship. Yang Qing pointed to the long sword behind Seiya and said lightly. Sword. Saiya's face became bitter. Elder, I'm really not suitable for practicing swords. Saiyans are a fighting nation. They are used to using fists and violence to solve all disputes. It is really unaccustomed to use this long sword to wield. Not suitable. Yang Qing laughed. In his eyes, this Saiya's muscles are slender and flexible, his fingers are slender and powerful, and he is the most suitable for practicing swordsmanship, but his brain is a bit stupid. Don't talk nonsense, what am I teaching you? You learn what you want. Oh, Saiya grimaced, very helpless. Afterwards, Yang Qing's hand flashed a ray of light, and the Johi sword behind him was pulled out. He slowed down and began to practice swordsmanship. This set of swordsmanship is called 13 Swords of Death. You spend 3 days to master him completely. Saiya has never been exposed to swordsmanship, but his powerful combat power has provided him with a fighting realm behind him. For this swordsmanship, Yang Qing predicts that he should be able to control it soon. Later, Seiya began to practice. Sure enough, just as Yang Qing thought, after just watching it once, Seiya was able to perfectly practice the 13 deadly swords. 3 days later, Seiya has completely mastered this sword technique. 1 sword. 2 swords. The unique powerful combat power allows Seiya to exert the strongest strength of this sword technique even if he has no internal strength. In the spacious living room, the two of them jumped up and down, and the 2 swords collided, making clanging noises constantly. After half a moment, Yang Qing nodded and put away his Johi sword. Very well, you've got it. Today's battle, you are only allowed to use a long sword. What? Great Elder, me. Saiya's face changed immediately, and everyone could see the distressed expression. I still think I'm suitable for using fists. Don't talk nonsense, or go back to Nova. Yang Qing showed no mercy at all and scolded directly. Soon, it was time for Saiya to fight. The two went out of the house and went straight to the competition stage. This time, the distance between the contest stage and Frieza's place was 1 kilometer closer. The Saiyans, the battle, the Fords, the Hanlisha. The referee's high voice came from far away, causing Frieza in the tallest building to immediately project his eyes again. As soon as he came to power, Seiya obeyed Yang Qing's teaching, and drew his long sword, and the sword was aimed at Hanlisha. Do Saiyans also use weapons? Are they not confident in their own strength? Hanlisha laughed when he saw it. There are also weapons that use weapons in the universe, but they are usually regarded as useless things. After all, everyone's combat effectiveness is so high that they can destroy the planet at any time. You play a sword made of steel. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Is that useful? Swords are sharp, but can they cut through their bodies? There's so much nonsense. Saiya's eyes were cold, and the other party's mockery made him angry. The game begins. The referee shouted. The atmosphere in the field suddenly changed. Seiya clenched his right hand, and then rushed out. At this moment, with the help of the movement technique, Saiya's speed almost turned into a light. And Hanlisha also narrowed his eyes and turned into a gust of wind. Soon, the two sides meet. Hanlisha's face showed a sinister smile, looking at the sword in Seiya's hand, without any scruples. Can a broken sword break through my defenses? He didn't believe it. He had already trained his body to the point where he was not afraid of steel. Moreover, His combat power is 15,000. In terms of combat effectiveness, it can be said that there is no difference between the two sides. But at the next moment, Han Lish's pupils shrank suddenly. How is that possible? In front of his eyes, Seiya, who was almost still, disappeared because both sides were in a state of extreme speed. The next moment, blood spurted out from his neck, and he completely lost consciousness. 3 Swords. Chapter 558 There are secrets. Seiya spit out these 2 words coldly, put his feet on the ground, and then put away his long sword. Under the competition stage, when the 2 of them crossed each other, all the space warriors became sluggish. How is this possible? Yes, how is it possible? The combat effectiveness of the 2 people on the stage can be clearly observed by everyone through the tester. Among them, the man with the sword had only 14,000 battle strength, while the opposite side had 15,000. Obviously a guy stronger than his opponent, but he was killed by the opponent's sword. What do you think? How impossible? In the tallest building, Frieza, who looked at Seiya through the glass, narrowed his eyes. There was doubt in his eyes, but it was still cold. Wild Monkey, when will you pay attention to skills? As the strongest group of people in the universe, Frieza's research on martial arts is naturally much more than others. With his perfect combat power, he can almost fully display or even exceed it. Naturally, it can be seen that in Sayana's sword, the use of skill is the way. For some reason, a word suddenly appeared in Frieza's heart. This Saiyan has a secret. This time, the game started one after another. And Seiya was going all the way, and using that set of swordsmanship, he actually picked 10 people in a row, and each of them was a guy stronger than him. This set of swordsmanship is so powerful. Seiya finally understood, and he was more convinced of the elders in his heart. It's just a set of swordsmanship, but it allows him to exert his strength beyond his own strength. When he defeated the 10th person, he had already exerted nearly double his strength, which was 28,000 combat power. That is to say, at the moment when he swings his sword, his combat power can soar to 28,000. After getting off the competition stage, Seiya looked at the elder with admiration on his face. Elder, you are too powerful. I feel that I am becoming more and more familiar with the feeling of the sword in my hand. Yang Qing just smiled. The battles in the later stages of Dragon Ball are basically solved with fists, but it cannot be denied that weapons also have a place for him. Trunks, isn't it the sword? The next game is in a month, and within this month, I'll make your fighting power up again. Seiya nodded happily. The next day, the 2 got up. But he entered the gravity room. For Saiyans, if they want to improve their strength, there is no doubt that it is gravity. Under the endless gravity, there will be strong pressure, and under pressure, a Saiyan's potential can be squeezed out. In the gravity room, Seiya was sweating profusely with a long sword in his hand. Yang Qing's index finger and middle finger folded together into a sword, and then easily caught every sword that Seiya swung out. This relaxed state made Seiya nervous. Every time he used the sword, Seiya was shocked, because he felt that the elder on the opposite side seemed to be an incomparably tall god, and his body was perfect without any flaws. He didn't know how to swing the sword at all. Gritting his teeth, when he swung his sword down, the great elder could easily block his every blow, putting more pressure on him again. It can be said that every swing of a sword is the most difficult test for Saiyan. Hoo-hoo, no way. Elder, you are too strong. Seiya was sweating profusely, his long sword leaned on the ground, and he waved his hand. It's not that I'm strong, it's that you're too weak. Saying this rudely, there was no sympathy on Yang Qing's face. Seiya's expression on the ground changed immediately, and the next moment, he waved his sword again and attacked Yang Qing. I don't want to be a weakling. I want to get stronger. I want to get stronger. The long sword is getting faster and faster, and the 13 deadly swords are in Seiya's hands, and he is getting more and more skilled and faster. A circle of boiling arrogance began to burn around Seiya, and his combat power began to slowly increase. A smile appeared on Yang Qing's face. Yes, that's how it is. Press yourself, and you can become stronger. The long sword collided with the fingers, making a clanging sound, and even sparks. In this state of fighting each other every day, a month passed quickly. This time the battle was closer to Frieza, and even Seiya stood on the competition stage, and he could clearly see the cold and ruthless face behind the glass cover. And while he glanced there, the eyes in the glass were also staring at him. There was no tension or fear. Seiya was very calm at this moment. He has changed, he has grown and become stronger. 50,000, his combat power at the moment is 50,000, and with the tactics of the 13 swords, he can even exert a combat power of 70,000 or 80,000. The stronger it is, the stronger the strength of some external tricks will be weakened. At this moment, not only is his strength stronger, but his temperament has also become much tougher. The game starts. The referee waved and shouted. In an instant, Seiya's eyes were sharp, and he bent his knees, and the next second, the figure disappeared. A cold, blooming light wafted out of the air, and then disappeared in an instant. A large piece of blood filled the air. Seiya turned around, the long sword was still sheathed, and he calmly jumped off the competition stage without looking behind him. On and off the stage, there was peace. Inside the glass cover, Frieza's pupils shrank suddenly, his fists clenched. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Man, there must be a secret. Yes, no matter who it is impossible for him to become so powerful in 30 days. Seiya's opponent, he knows. He is a very powerful person, and there is a 60% chance that he has become his subordinate, but he was killed by Seiya with a sword. Hey, too strong, he's a Saiyan, I remember him. Masters of swords are rare in the universe. The cosmic warriors under the stage all pointed at Seiya, their faces full of awe. The strong are worthy of respect wherever they are. In the next battle, no matter who he faces, Seiya is almost cut off with one sword. He is too strong. Among these cosmic warriors, he is the most powerful existence. After 5 battles, Seiya finally faced one of the strongest warriors. With a combat power of 50,000, he is known as a powerhouse who was 100% in the sight of Lord Frieza. The sword pointed directly. Seiya's expression was very indifferent. And just when Seiya was fighting on the stage, somewhere in a corner, a pair of young eyes were staring at him very complicatedly. Saiyan, there are other Saiyans besides us. Chapter 559 _ The man who spoke softly was not very old, only about 10 years old, but his face was cold, and his eyes were full of cruelty and blood, but he was a stubborn warrior. And beside him, there are 2 slightly larger-looking teenagers, both of which are also cold. He really is a Saiyan. The teenager next to him looked at the tail behind Seiya on the competition stage, with surprise and a hint of joy on his face. Prince Vegeta, should we directly reveal our identity and subdue him? His power may be helpful to us. Raditz, who is somewhat similar to Bardock behind his back, whispered. Look and observe again, Vegeta said coldly, then turned to leave here. When he accidentally met his own clan here, Vegeta was a little excited and happy in his heart. The Saiyan family, he thought that there were only these few people around him, but he didn't expect there was another one. But Seiya's strength also shocked him, which is far more powerful than him and the people around him. He even guessed whether this guy was as powerful as his father. This person is too powerful and dangerous. You can't touch him at will, Vegeta said calmly in her heart. On the martial arts stage, Seiya's face was flat, and he was almost invincible. No one could resist 10 moves in front of him. The swordsmanship combined with the explosive power of his god made him strong enough to be a very exaggerated one. Level. This one's called Seiya, it's interesting. On the top of the mountain, Frieza said in a low voice inside the glass cover. According to his trend, the probability of becoming your subordinate has reached 90%. Behind him, a person said with a smile, congratulations to Mr. Frieza. Haha, Frieza smiled, you can take a look at this kid. For Seiya, Frieza was indeed tempted, but what moved him even more was Seiya's sudden surge in strength. He wanted to know how this weak guy in his eyes became so powerful in such a short period of time. There must be a secret he doesn't know, and he is very interested in this. In the field, the Saiyan jumped off the stage under the awe-inspiring eyes of the cosmic warriors and referees. His performance is outstanding, can be said to be a blockbuster. In the eyes of these space warriors, almost 100% can join Frieza's command. And becoming the subordinate of the cosmic Emperor Frieza can definitely be said to be a step to the sky. Seiya's strength, coupled with his almost certain status later in life, earned him the respect of these men. Lord Seiya, the lounge we prepared for you is here. As soon as they got off the competition stage, a space warrior walked over with a flattering smile, and said with a flattering smile. Seiya was stunned for a moment, then glanced at the crowd, and then waved, "No need." Immediately following, Seiya turned his head and left, leaving behind the space warrior with a dazed expression. He had never met such a straightforward person who refused. You know, that is the most luxurious lounge in the entire northern galaxy, even the star masters of some planets cannot enjoy it. About a minute later, Seiya found Yang Qing standing in the crowd. "Elder," he said respectfully. It was not until this moment that he understood the reason why the great elder let him practice swords. The more he used it, the more he liked the feeling of holding a long sword in his hand, which was a natural feeling, as if he was born to do it. "Well, let's go back." Yang Qing nodded and said expressionlessly, not showing his anger. The two followed the flow of people and quickly left here. Just after they left, a group of cautious cosmic warriors followed closely. About 3 hours later, the team of space warriors crept to the door of a house on the planet and knocked on the door. "Come in," a childish voice came from the house. "Lord Vegeta, we followed the man named Seiya and determined his location." The space warrior replied in a low voice. "Very good," Vegeta nodded. But, space warrior hesitated, then said again, "But we found out that there is another Saiyan." And another. This time, not only Vegeta, but Raditz and Nappa were all shocked. After the Saiyans were exterminated, it was good to find one. Will there be another one? How can that be? Prince Vegeta, what should I do? Raditz asked directly. If the two Saiyans can be drawn into their camp, it will be unimaginable for them to help them. Vegeta began to hesitate, and after a full 30 seconds, he just popped out a sentence, 3 days. 3 days later, let's find them. At the same moment, Yang Qing and Seiya also returned to the house. Seiya poured tea for Yang Qing diligently, then wiped the table, the ground, and cleaned up, and then looked at Yang Qing with awe. Big elder, do you have anything else to teach me?" After hearing this, Yang Qing let out a laugh. "Ha ha, you kid, you are insatiable, and you still want to improve." "Yeah," Seiya nodded hurriedly. "Your power has surpassed those 5 boys now, and you still want to improve." Yang Qing's expression was a little playful. "Elder, I know you have a way to make me stronger again, please." Seiya bent down deeply. "It's okay to make you stronger." After Yang Qing pondered for a while, he raised his head and looked at Seiya with a smile. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. With a smile on Seiya's face, he said very wisely, "Please ask the elders, no matter what, I can do it." "Ha ha ha, it's not that exaggerated." Yang Qing shook his head. "For the next 20 years, you will stay by my side and be my assistant who brings tea and water." 20 years. Pour tea and water. Assistant. A series of words made Seiya immediately bewildered. When did Saiyans do these things? He subconsciously shook his head, but thinking of the mysterious power of the elder, he finally nodded with difficulty. "I did it. Elder, as long as you can make me stronger, I will do anything." "Ha ha, I like your boy's pure heart of becoming stronger, it's much better than those 5 boys." Yang Qing laughed. "In that case, I'll teach you something. The day after tomorrow, give me the first place in this martial arts meeting." "I will definitely do it." Seiya is also confident. Chapter 560 Decisive Battle. 3 hours later, Yang Qing taught Seiya the method of bursting gas. The latter's ability to learn is very fast, and on the second day, it is already mastered. At this time, Seiya's instant explosive power can almost reach the strength of 150,000. With the addition of explosive gas and swordsmanship, he is stronger than most people on this planet. In the blink of an eye, 3 days have passed. On this day, the crowds on this planet seem to be denser, almost shoulder to shoulder, one next to the other. It was extremely lively everywhere, and everyone knew that today, a new batch of space warriors will enter the finals and become the new subordinates of King Frieza. Yang Qing and Seiya followed the crowd to the stage of the final competition. At this time, 2 strong men were fighting on the stage. The fighting style is really rough. Shaking his head helplessly, in Yang Qing's opinion, these people are strong, but the fighting skills are really clumsy. Not as good as some time ago, the battle of some weak races, let him learn a lot. These people are powerful, and they are only gifted by their own racial talent. An hour passed, and finally it was Seiya's turn to play. Elder, I'm going. After nodding towards Yang Qing, Seiya flew to the competition stage. As soon as Seiya appeared on the stage, the surrounding space warriors were all excited. It's that Saiyan, the guy who barely beaten the other day, it's his turn. This is a good show to watch. His opponent heard that the combat power has reached 100,000. According to the combat power he showed before, the highest is only 50,000 or 60,000, he will definitely lose. I don't know. In the first few games, Seiya solved his opponent very quickly. Maybe he has any hidden tricks. The crowd of onlookers began to discuss in full swing, with excited expressions on their faces. And after Seiya stood on the competition stage, he was cold and closed his eyes. He was wearing a black martial arts uniform, with big blue characters engraved on his mouth, and a long sword on his back, looking very imposing. After more than 3 minutes, the competition platform shook, a huge object fell from the sky, and a large piece of gravel appeared in the direction of the competition platform where it fell. Big monster, Godzilla. This is a powerful opponent with a combat power of 100,000 and a height of 30 meters. On the opposite side of him, is the strongest among the Saiyans of the fighting nation, Seiya. He once had a dazzling record. In the face of any enemy, he can almost kill with a sword. His powerful combat power, even more amazing. Quote. The referee shouted loudly and introduced the two in 2 sentences. Then, he waved his hand without delay. Battle, start. Roar. Godzilla is 30 meters tall, with sturdy arms and legs that are as large as 5 or 6 Seiyas, and when he takes a step, the sky is shaken. Little one, I'm going to trample you to death. With a loud roar, Godzilla raised his right leg and stomped it down. His fighting strength of 100,000 is pure physical strength. How huge it is! With every movement, the space is trembling, the air is rushing, and the wind is blowing. Moreover, at 30 meters, he stood in front of Seiya like a giant, completely blocking the latter's sight. Boom! The air hissed, and the huge feet fell directly towards Sean's head. Go to hell, little one. Until this moment, the strong wind swept across his head. Seiya still closed his eyes, his hair was swaying, his black martial arts uniform was shaking, but his expression was still calm and calm. Finally, the huge foot was less than a meter away from the top of his head, and the wind was even more violent. Seiya finally opened his eyes, these black and white pupils, how sharp this moment is. Exploding. He drank these 2 words coldly in his mouth, and suddenly, a majestic breath rushed out of Seiya's body. He exploded, tripled in an instant. Immediately after the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared under the huge feet. At the same time, Godzilla's feet slammed down. Boom! A large area of the competition platform collapsed, and it began to shake violently, and dust was everywhere. In this blow, almost the entire destruction missed. Godzilla felt that there was no one under his feet, and his face was puzzled. Immediately afterwards, he glanced around the ground, but did not see the other person's figure. Where are the people? Where did they go? His voice roared like thunder, and the quaking void was shaking. Hey, big man! Suddenly, a figure came from behind him. Godzilla shuddered and turned around. Where am I here? The clear words came into his ears, and Seiya was holding his hands in his arms at the moment, looking at this huge guy with playfulness. How dare you escape? Godzilla was immediately furious, and his stout arms swung out violently, hitting the void. But the next moment, he was disappointed, and he still missed the hit. That little guy was gone again. Hearing words in his ears, he turned around again and threw a punch. However, the result is still the same as last time. He turned around desperately, and then punched, but the opponent turned him around, making him more and more angry. 30 seconds. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. After that, a helpless voice came from his ear again. Strength is strong, but he is a stupid guy. Godzilla was enraged, he turned his head sharply, and punched again. Who are you talking about, stupid? This time, after the punch was thrown, the little guy didn't dodge, just stared at him coldly. You are so stupid. With a punch, Godzilla became excited. He clearly saw that the punch hit the opponent, but the feeling of emptiness later made his heart tremble again. It's a phantom. There was a loud roar from the audience under the stage. Godzilla shuddered, and then turned his head again. According to the previous rules, that guy must still be behind him. But this time, what greeted him was a kind-hearted sword light. Huh! The speed was incredible, and it was aimed at his neck. Then, the sword light flashed, Godzilla's huge head rose into the sky, and a large amount of blood sprayed out again. One move, another move. One sword killed Godzilla with a fighting power of 100,000. It's too powerful, too powerful. Seiya, Saya, Saya. A group of people shouted the name loudly and excitedly. At this moment, the atmosphere is high.